It's good for you. Come on. We'll think of another place. Come with me. Let's have a smoke break. Nah, it's just a normal break. It's smoke break. Smoke break. Smoke.
30 seconds and counting.
There were plenty of years where there were guys who would dread being drafted by the Buffalo Bills. Not anymore.
Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds.
Brandon Beane realizes they're in a window of 2 to 3 years max to get this done while the iron's still hot. And getting Von Miller into that situation was big for the Bills.
10, 9.
Oh, baby.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Great interview, guys.
Oh, baby! What is up, Buffalo Fanatics? Z-Bot here with you, live on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel on a Monday night. And that, of course, can only mean one thing. It is the Smoke Break, Monday, August 28th. 2 weeks from the minute. Bills, Jets, Monday Night Football live from MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Oh, my God. 2 weeks, folks. We are Stephon Diggs days away. 14 days. Oh, the goosebumps. The hair is risen to the ceiling in the Smoke Break Studios. I cannot believe it. We are breaking down Bills Jets tonight. It's here, folks. We're here. Bills football. The last Monday of August. This Friday, it's officially September, and you know, when you hear September, you can only think of one thing, and that's football. I can't believe it. 1 week from this coming Thursday, just a couple short days away, we have NFL football live on our television screens. Kansas City Chiefs, Detroit Lions, and then a few short days after that, not to mention a full Sunday slate where we finally get to welcome back Scott Hansen, who will sit down in the studio and look you dead in the eye and say, 7 hours of commercial-free football starts now. Oh, my God, I can feel tears welling up behind these blue eyeballs. It's here, folks. This will be the last official Monday night smoke. Think about it this way. This is how close we are. This is the last official Monday night smoke break until the Bills play an actual regular season 2023 NFL football game. 1 week from tonight is Labor Day. I will be at Heavens Amphitheater at the Gorge out near Seattle, Washington for my favorite weekend of the year. Dave Matthews, 3 nights at the Gorge. You've heard me rant about it before. It's the best. One low-key reason why that is the best is because it's the last weekend without NFL football. I'm enjoying my favorite overall weekend of the year. And when I'm back, it's right in to the pigskin. Not to mention, we have a full slate of college football coming up this week. And if you didn't already indulge this past week, I mean, hell, even watching Notre Dame, the Golden Domers beat the snot out of the poor midshipmen out of Navy. I mean, it was football. We got to watch Caleb Williams, the up-and-coming number 1 overall draft pick, 99% likely in the coming draft. Got to watch him this past weekend. Football is here. It is here. And I couldn't be more excited. And I couldn't be more excited to have you in tonight on a Monday night for our last official smoke break before that Bills game. I will be live at some point next week. Just follow the YouTube, my Twitter handles. There's no way I can go this long without getting back into it. Hopefully going to be joining some Jets content creators, get them involved, get their side of things. I'll have stuff coming your way. Just won't be on Monday because, of course, that is Labor Day 1 week from tonight. But I can't stop saying this. 2 weeks from tonight, I will be in MetLife Stadium watching the Bills get a barrage of boos by the bandwagon New York Jets fans who have come out of their cave to finally, in their minds, to finally go and watch a competitive New York Jets team, a Jets team who has not really been relevant since Mark Sanchez was playing quarterback. It will be filled to the brim, and I'm sure those airline jets will fly over the stadium with a big flag out on the field. 9/11, right outside of New York City. The emotions are going to be high. The Jets fans have come out of the woodwork. They're going to be there, and you know damn well Bills Mafia's don't travel. My dad just booked his flight yesterday. Papa Bell's all set up. He's flying in 1 week from Thursday. You know he's going to have to be here for the official inaugural game of the 2023 NFL season. Of course, a little Penn State, West Virginia football too. Actually, no, that's this coming weekend. I'm getting my weekends confused. I'm just too excited. But Papa Bell, he's booked his flight. It's all ready to rock. We're going to be in that bitch. I can't wait. Meeting up with the Thigh Doc, Dan Mitchell, the AFC East Roundtable, open bar, by the way, so I'm told. According to Dan Mitchell, open bar tailgate for the Bills game at MetLife. Now, you have heard me, if you're a frequent listener, there has been at least one time you have heard me grill the living hell out of the tailgate experience at the MetLife Stadium. It's terrible. Getting in and out of there is a nightmare. You need to dedicate at least 2 hours to pull into the parking lot. Once you do, it's just not very fun. It's not very theatrical. I mean, you pull up to One Bills Drive, and it's like pulling up to a carnival. It's a movie. Doesn't matter if the game's at 1, 4, 8, Thursday, Sunday, Monday. It is going to be a show. You pull up at MetLife, and it just kind of feels like you're pulling up to any other event. This could be a little bit different, though, with the AFC East Roundtable boys, open bar. But I will say, I just got back from a cruise. Let me get into that a little bit. Believe me, we're going to have a lot tonight. We're going to go as long as she takes tonight. You know how it goes. I don't have a time limit. Although I do have to work all night tonight and all day tomorrow. But let's not think about that. Let's not talk about that. I got to get all my work done before I head out to the Gorge on Thursday. But right now, it's smoke break time, and we're dedicating as much time as we need, as much time as we want to talking about what's right around the corner. But let's start off with why I wasn't with you last week. And let me just preface this, by the way. Good thing I wasn't. Because Bills-Steelers preseason, that was one of the worst things I've seen. It was disgusting, terrible. It left a brutal taste in my mouth. We actually had a birthday party we had to go to, and we had to leave for it right after the opening drive, which, by the way, I thought Allen looked great. The statistics as far as his time spent in the pocket say otherwise, as far as why the offensive line maybe looked a little bit worse than they actually were, just based on the amount of time spent in the back of the pocket. Either way, though, that Bills Steelers preseason game last week was just horrid. It was terrible, and I don't know what to take from it other than I'm going to just forget it happened because I don't care. We already have another preseason game versus the Bears that has come and gone since then. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight. And not for nothing, the Steelers, are they the next dynasty? Because they're rolling through everyone. Kenny Pickett, he's had 5 drives in the preseason, 5 touchdowns. They had a 17-0 spot up on Atlanta, I think it was, over this past weekend in the first quarter. So maybe the Steelers are just going to the bowl. I don't know. Maybe it was nothing to do with the Bills. Either way, it wasn't pretty. They got back on track to some extent against the Bears this past weekend, especially the ones. That was one beauty of an opening drive. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. Anyway, the reason I wasn't with you last week, Caroline and I went on a cruise. It was the first cruise I've ever been on. It is the last cruise I will ever be on. And I feel like this might offend some people because I did not realize that there is a die-hard cruise community. It'd be like coming up to me and saying Dave Matthews sucks, or it'd be like coming up to me and saying, Josh Allen sucks, the Bills suck. You tell a cruise guy or gal or whatever that you're not a cruise person and they're looking at you like you got four heads. Hated it. Will never do it again. It was the equivalent of this is how I explained what I felt as though the cruise experience was. It felt like it was a mix of a rec center, a cheap casino, and a budget motel mixed into one floating on the water. I don't know. Wasn't for me. And we had the unlimited drink package. We had all that. It wasn't like we did it wrong. Just was not for me. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I hate being in one spot for very long, and it just felt like Groundhog Day. Every time you woke up, it was the same thing. You wake up on this swaying-ass boat in this tiny, cramped little room with really outdated beds and whatever else. I mean, it felt like I was sleeping on the floor the majority of the time. And you walk out, and you got pretty much two choices. Go and swim in an incredibly crowded and probably God knows what's filled in type pool. Go drink until you pass out, which you can really, I don't know. I'm not 21 anymore, which is crazy to say. I can't do it anymore. I can do it, but repetitively over multiple days, it's like not in the cards anymore, which is sad, but it's not. And I don't know. I mean, I know it's going to, if you like cruises or whatever, it's going to come across like I hate fun. I don't. I enjoy a good time. So that's not it. It just wasn't for me. I do understand the appeal. I do get it. If you are retired, 70 years old, and have nothing to do but cruise, I get it. If you have a family where the kids are, unless they jump off the boat, which is highly unlikely, where the kids are going to be, and they have an infinite amount of things to do. You can walk up to a guy and just say, hi, can I have an ice cream cone? And they're just going to rip the ice cream dispenser right in front of you and hand it to you, and you're on your way. I mean, if you're a kid, it's got to be heaven on earth. You're going from the arcade to the ice cream machine to the buffet to the pool to the slide. I get all that. Then you got that middle ground where Caroline and I were. I think if we went with a crew of people, like a bunch of people, maybe it would have been a bit more fun. You got a whole crew. But with Caroline and I, we were in that median age where it didn't seem like anybody else was our age. And those who were either on like a bachelor party or a bachelorette party or something. And my girlfriend, or my fiance now, as I keep forgetting to call it, fiance. Although, by the way, I think I referenced on here how much I hate the word fiance. So does Caroline. So she has been referring to me now as her partner. Every time she's on the phone. The other day, reserving something, and she's like, oh, let me just check with my partner. And I'm like, I don't know if I like that any better than fiance. We just need to get married like tomorrow so I can just call her the wife because it's just way easier and it sounds better. But anyway, she is the most optimistic person on the planet. You could drop her off in the middle of purgatory. She'd find a way to have fun. She would find a way to make the most of it. That's just the way she is. It's one of the best things about her. And it keeps me sane. Because you drop me off in that same area, and I'm going to tell you everything that's wrong with it. She's going to tell you everything that's right with it. That's why we've been together as long as we have. That's why we're getting married. You know how it goes. Even she hated it. And that's when I knew I was like, oh, man. And I'm glad she did, selfishly, because I didn't want to be a Debbie Downer and ruin her good time if she was having it. But she gave it her best shot. But like day two, she was like, no. She's like, I need to get off this thing. And the thing is, it's not like you can say, hey, you know what? We're going to pack it up and get in the car and head home early here. No, you are out on the wavy seas in the middle of God knows where, and you ain't going anywhere until that thing docks. And I got to tell you, it was one of the most satisfying feelings ever walking off of that boat. It was euphoric. And of course, that was a process in itself because you got to, everything's a line or everything. It's so cramped. You're smashing like 5,000 people onto a boat. So everywhere you move, you're bumping into somebody or whatever. And it was like that all the way until we got off. And when we got off, I'm like, oh my God. And then how about this? The whole trip was just, it was out of a nightmare. We get off the boat finally, but we had to, the boat left out of Florida. So we're in Connecticut. We had to fly down to Orlando, worst airport on the planet. They said, hey, you know, we got Disney here. We got Universal Studios here. We have a major cruise dock here. Why don't we build the world's worst airport? You know, it's not like we don't have tens of thousands of people coming through every day. Might as well build the world's worst airport. There had to have been 1,500 people in line when we were there, and they had 4 people working security. And the way that they mapped out this thing, the way that they built it or whatever, you can only let so many people through security until you have to stop the whole line, let those people get all the way through, and then go through it again. We got in line for the security an hour before the flight. We almost missed the initial flight, but we made it through. Okay, great. We get through. Then we get on the flight. And they got live TV. I'm watching a little NFL preseason. I'm kicked back, got the headphones on. Get me out of here. But, you know, we got a layover, of course, because that's just the way the cards were dealt. We get to the beautiful city of Detroit, Michigan. And what do you know? The plane said, hey, you know, it's a tow-in gate. And we can't get towed in for like 30 minutes. I never understood this. Why can't I get off the flight and walk? Can someone escort me inside when my layover flight, my connecting flight is literally 40 minutes removed from landing? Can somebody escort me to the plane, please? Because I paid good money to get on that. Nope, not in the not an option. You will sit and you will wait until you are carded in. That's what we did. We got carded in, and what do you know? The flight back to Connecticut was long gone in the sky, making her merry way up into the clouds. Gonzo. So we had to go and run. Caroline, God bless her, she was on genius mode. She looks at the array of flights. She goes, oh, there's one flying out of LaGuardia. Let's just go run up there and ask if we can go on. And I'm looking at her, and I'm like, what is it? What is this, a free-for-all? You're just going to walk up and say, how can we get on? That's exactly what happened. So back to her being like the most optimistic person on the planet, it pays off sometimes. We just walked up to this LaGuardia flight and said, hey, can we get on it? Because we just got royally effed. And they let us on it, and we got home, thank God. But, of course, that didn't come without having to get a $110 Uber home because our car was at the other airport, right? Tried to get that refunded. They told me to shove it up my ass. So, to put a bow on the cruise experience, though, never again. I'm glad I did it once because I would have always have wondered what it was like. The commercials make it seem like it's heaven on earth. It isn't. Once again, I do get the appeal for certain people. I also get the appeal in general if you just like hanging out and doing nothing. My mind doesn't work like that. I am like one gigantic anxiety ball. Like I am a hamster in a wheel just spinning. Except I like when there's a little bit of cheese in front of me, obviously. I enjoy some cheese. I want something to chase after. There was nothing to chase after on this boat. The only thing I was chasing was the day we were getting off. We wound up playing blackjack and slots in the casino 50% of the time, I would say. And the false sense of actually going to a tropical destination too is hilarious. Because they're like, oh, you're going to the Bahamas. And you're thinking, all right, we're going to the Bahamas. Like, all right. They drop you off. It's called Nassau. That's not to be confused with Nassau, Long Island. It's called Nassau, whatever. That's the city in the Bahamas. And they drop you off, and it's like just one gigantic outdoor mall, so to speak. It's like, hey, we're going to drop you off. You can walk around and buy either a rum cake or a straw hat. And if you're not in the market for either of those things, you can either pay somebody $200 to get on a fishing boat that can take you to some beach where you can sit down for the rest of the day, or you can just get back on the boat. And we're like, I already have enough straw hats for some reason. I actually do own a couple. I don't know why. They have the Dave Matthews logo on it, so that's exactly why. Gluten-free, can't eat the rum cake. We're out of options here. And I got free alcohol on the boat. I'm not going to pay for it there. Back on the boat. So it's not like you actually go to the Bahamas. I mean, you do, but you don't. It'd be like going on a road trip. It'd be like saying, hey, I'm going to the Bills game, driving to MetLife, sitting in the MetLife parking lot, and being like, hey, the MetLife experience was world class. Man, what a stadium. Loved it. That game was great, whatever. It's like, no, you sat in the car and listened to it on the radio. I mean, if you enjoy that, good for you. That's great. That's awesome. Nothing wrong with that, I guess. But don't make it seem like it's this whole production, because it wasn't. Overall, 3.5, 4 out of 10, I guess. Lesson learned. And hey, we'll have stories from it forever. We just kind of sat around and people watched, which was very fun to do, because you're seeing people from all over the place. And you get to really watch some people in their element there. I mean, there's some people who get in their element on these cruises. You can just tell. I will say, though, the one thing that I absolutely loved, can't knock it at all, the service. Like if you buy the unlimited stuff, I mean, they're not kidding around. The service was incredible. These people wait on you hand and foot. It's amazing. And I'm just not used to that, nor do I often feel comfortable with it. I just don't particularly like that. But they don't make it feel like it's a burden or whatever. The staff was incredible. And usually when you get these drink packages, you walk up to the bar and they're like, oh, what'll it be? Recipe 21? And you're like, oh, great. And they, of course, probably watered down that with a half gallon of tap water before serving it to you. It wasn't the case here. We're talking Gentleman's Jack, Johnny Walker Blue Label, Jameson. That was awesome. And then the dinner service was great. Every night for dinner was like a 4-course meal with your own personal waiter, and they know everything about you. That was cool. Got to give them props where it's due. The rest of it, I'm out on. So that was my cruise experience. That's why I wasn't with you last week, but I'm back here, and I am here outside of next Monday, of course. I am here for the foreseeable future. Not going anywhere other than MetLife Stadium in 2 weeks from tonight. And that's where we'll start to get into our football talk tonight after we leave the cruise in the past, because that's where it is staying. Staying there. So 2 weeks from tonight, we're going to talk tonight about what we can expect from both sides. We can talk about how the Jets are going to win this game, how the Bills are going to win this game, what we think this game is going to look like overall, what the deciding factors are going to be, what the Bills in particular are going to look like on both sides of the ball, what the Jets are going to look like in particular on both sides of the ball, what the quarterback position is going to look like. The amount of intriguing storylines going into this is off the charts. There's just so much stuff. There's just so much. Even the added addition of the James Cook versus Dalvin Cook battle, it's just going to get lost in the weeds because it's nothing compared to the rest of what is in store for us that night. It's crazy to think that that is the week 1 game. I mean, I don't know if you're like me at all. I mean, obviously, you know what's around the corner the first month. You have the Raiders, you have the Commanders, Dolphins to kick off October. But if you're like me, I have not looked past, you know how like when every time you interview any of the players or anytime you see an interview with the players, they always say to you, right? They always say, I don't know who we're playing. Sometimes I genuinely believe them. Like sometimes I don't think these guys know who they're playing. They're so dead focused on what's around the corner, like what's right in front of them. Other times I'm like, yeah, come on. You know what's going on. And I get it. It is the politically correct, tried and true right answer, right? You have to say, just focus on the Jets. Classic Bill Belichick. We're on to Cincinnati type thing. I genuinely have been that way. I have not thought of anything other than week 1, Monday night, Bills Jets. I've barely, and this is coming from somebody who loves gambling on football, who watches every single snap of every single game. Every year. I haven't even looked at the Sunday slate for week one. I've gazed at it, glanced at it. But outside of the Thursday night game, Chiefs-Lions, I couldn't tell you. That's how dialed in I am. And it has been this way for months. And it was right when Aaron Rodgers, he was already a Jet before he was a Jet, right? He was already locked in. We all knew it was going to happen well before it did. Right around the draft, we already had anticipated it. It just had not gotten there yet. But it might as well have been set in stone. Ever since that became the reality, it's all I've been thinking about. Absolutely all that has occupied my mind. So when this game ends, having to turn over to the Raiders is going to be a weird feeling. Haven't even given it a thought. Now, I will say, for the Bills, just on that quick topic, now that we're kind of just talking about it, I think the fact that the Bills have two of what you would argue to be their easiest games of the schedule right after this Jets game is very advantageous for Buffalo. And it's one thing that I think is a disadvantage for the Jets. If you look at the Bills' opening 3 weeks, compare it to the Jets, it's night and day. The Bills kick it off in one of the games of the year. I mean, that's what it's being set up to be. I think it is one of the games of the year. How could it not be? It is the first opportunity anybody is going to see Aaron Rodgers in a New York Jet uniform in a regular season game. The first time he has ever taken a snap in a regular season game for a team not named the Green Bay Packers in the NFL. That in itself, no matter whether the Bills were playing or not, huge. Then you have the hard knocks factor backing up into all of this, getting to watch the inside details of the Jets each and every week. Then you got Breece Hall coming back, potentially. He won't probably be there for week one, but it's a storyline that the Jets are hyping up because they know they have a potential offensive rookie of the year type running back of last year coming in again this year to back up one of the best running backs in the league, the newest addition, Dalvin Cook. Then you do have the defensive rookie of the year in Sauce Gardner. You do have the actual offensive rookie of the year in Garrett Wilson. All of that, and we haven't even mentioned the Bills yet. Not to mention, it's a division rivalry. The AFC East is this coming season the most competitive it has ever been in my lifetime. I don't care what happens. I guarantee you it will be sometime between now and whenever that there will be another stacked up AFC East like this where you go into the season thinking, I don't think it can get much more competitive than this, not only in this division, but in the entirety of the NFL. We don't know what's going to play out. One of these teams could absolutely bomb. The Jets could be like the Broncos of last year, just shit the bed, 5-12. No one saw it coming, right? That could happen. But in this given moment right now, 14 days away from this kickoff, has there ever been more hype surrounding the AFC East? I mean, really, truly think about it. And this is in my lifetime. But granted, it's in the majority of your guys' lifetime, and if not that, a majority portion of your life. Because for 20 some odd years, there was no hype around the AFC East. It was, when is the division crown going to be handed to Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and the New England Patriots, and who are they going to play after their first round bye? That was the AFC East for 2 decades. Tom Brady leaves. Josh Allen era has arrived. And the AFC East was down. It was weakened, obviously. The New England Patriots, to this day, still have yet to find a way to recover. The Jets were as low as they have ever been. And the Dolphins were, I would argue, a bit better than the other two aforementioned teams, except they weren't quite at the level of prominence in which they are now. And then they add Tyreek Hill. They draft Jalen Waddle. Tua, when healthy, he's an accurate passer. I mean, he's not going to lose you the game. Don't know yet if he's going to win you many games, but we do know when he's out there, he can move the ball. Either way, when the Bills initially took over the AFC East after the reign of the Patriots, it was down, and it didn't last very long. It has been back-to-back-to-back glorious years of regular season football for these Buffalo Bills. The New England Patriots essentially had that for 20 consecutive years outside of a couple blips on the screen throughout that time period. There was never a competitive level like this. The Bills were never close to being able to compete with the Patriots on that level. At times, it felt like Miami was. At times, it felt like the Jets were when they got to the AFC Championship game back-to-back years, Rex Ryan, Mark Sanchez. But it never felt like throughout the regular season that they were ever going to fully dethrone the Patriots for the foreseeable future. You go into this coming season, the Bills are the class of the AFC East, and they have to be considered that until proven otherwise. I'm a big advocate of that. You can't just annoy. This is what pisses me off so much about the Jets. It's got nothing to do with the talent level on the roster sheet. It's got nothing to do with really anything. It's got almost all to do with the fact that they have been put on this pedestal that has not yet been earned. And I understand the hype. Of course, it makes too much sense. If you're a Jets fan, I couldn't imagine how hyped you are right now. Everything has gone right for you this offseason. This is an offseason handcrafted by the gods, but there hasn't been a snap of football played yet. And as of right now, the Bills are 3-time reigning AFC East champions. They are the class of the AFC East until proven otherwise. But with that said, you look at the coming year here, and there is a legitimate, sound, cohesive argument for the Bills to win the division, for the Jets to win the division, for the Dolphins to win the division. Maybe there were spurts of time throughout the Tom Brady reign where you could have a hot take or two, but you probably wouldn't have sounded all that intelligent. You could have a very intelligent argument for all three of these teams coming into this season. And I wouldn't blame anybody for picking one of the three at all. I can't possibly, in good conscience, put the New England Patriots in that conversation. If that happened, I can't even imagine how they would get to that. Either Mac Jones would have to flip over from being a pretty average quarterback to one of the league's best. The defense would have to be absolute world-class dominant, 1-2 in the league. Ezekiel Elliott would have to reemerge as one of the best running backs in the league. A very mediocre wide receiver core would have to all of a sudden explode. The amount of things that would have to happen for the New England Patriots to win the division is astronomical. Not to mention the three other teams would have to implode. It's not happening. You have three teams right now that you sit down with a let's talk about somebody who's not in a position of bias. Like we are. I mean, we are in a position where whether you want to admit it or not, there's bias to everything that we say as Bills fans. There's bias to everything that every fan has to say. But if you found somebody with no lineage to an AFC East team, they could make a sound argument, all biases aside, for three teams to win the division, and it would make sense. And that is why this coming season is so extraordinarily exciting. That is why this game in particular is off the charts exciting for a week one game. But it's also why this game in particular is so massive. Week one, right out of the gates, the first Monday night game of the year, the first standalone game on a Monday night of the year. The rating's going to be through the roof. The amount of eyeballs on that game is going to be insane. The atmosphere, you name it. I mean, you just add it to the list. All of it that's going to be the first moment where all of this stuff, all of this culmination of the AFC East, almost unarguably being the toughest division in football coming into 2023. The rise of the New York Jets, the rise of the Dolphins, right? Dolphins aside, we'll obviously focus more on the Jets here. Even though the Dolphins, I mean, they're playing the Chargers. That's a tough-ass task to open up the year. All of this starts in 2 weeks. Our quest for answers. And it doesn't get more telling than the particular game in which we have the most vested interest in, Bills-Jets. All of this stuff I'm talking about, it comes to a head in 60 minutes of football 2 weeks from almost the second of right now. There's so many factors. And it's all going to be put out on display. And you know what's going to happen. The takes are going to be unbelievable, and it's going to skew everything one way or the other, and it's going to set the tone. Because think about what I'm talking about here in regards to this division in particular. we're talking about the most competitive it's maybe ever been. And it's probably the most competitive it will be maybe ever, but easily for the foreseeable future. The tone for that gets set in this game. The AFC East is going to be outside of the NFC East, which is always the most talked about division in football because it has the Dallas Cowboys and, it has major market teams and the best teams in the NFC outside of San Francisco. The AFC East will be the most talked about division in football throughout the entirety of this upcoming season. You will not be able to turn on your television, your radio, a podcast, you name it, without that division being discussed in some capacity. And it all kicks off that Monday night. Do you understand the gravity, the weight of this game? That's why I'm so nervous for it. I'm exceptionally nervous for this game. And many people would say, oh, this is the initial layman's response. Oh, you're scared. You're scared of the Jets. You're scared of Aaron Rodgers. You're scared of the competition. You're scared of the defense. No. I respect all of that, all of it. I respect the hell out of that defense, respect the hell out of Aaron Rodgers, respect the hell out of what the Jets have been able to put together here. It is quite extraordinary. The nerves stem from what I think, from what I feel that the weight that this game carries. That's where the nerves stem from. Last year, it was massive. And I've said this before. At that point in time, even though it's always recency bias, but at that point in time, you'd be really hard-pressed to find a bigger week one opener for the Bills, maybe in franchise history. You're talking about a team fresh off one of the best losses anybody's ever seen, a loss that propelled this team into a Super Bowl contender into the eyes of the media. There wasn't a single win that propelled the Bills into the good graces of the media quite like the loss against the Chiefs did, right? And you carried all that momentum with the additional signing of Von Miller into SoFi Stadium to play the reigning champs. And it was huge. And it was the first game of the entire season, not just for the Bills particular season. The first game of the entire NFL season was that. It was massive. This game to me feels 10 times bigger, and I'm not exaggerating. And I remember just how big last year felt. But when you kind of look back on it, had the Bills have gone out, and say the Rams didn't suck like they did last year. Say the Rams were still a viable team. Playoff at least, Super Bowl contender at best. Say the Bills went out and lost that game. Way easier to move on from. Out of conference game, road game, Thursday night, you got a week and a half to prepare for the next one. But more importantly, it's out of conference and it's not going to affect you much in regard to the seeding in the AFC, depending on how, of course, things play out, but not nearly as much as it would if you lost to what we are currently facing right now. The weight of each individual divisional game this season, just think about it. Each team's got 6 cracks. The weight of each of those are monumental because there's a very likely reality out there that 2 of these 3 teams that we continuously keep talking about here that make up the best division in football could be left out of the AFC playoffs depending on how things pan out. It's never meant more to win the division. It's never meant more. And each one of these games is going to have a massive weight to it. But it's all amplified to the millionth degree on this stage coming up. And I think that's where my nerves stem from. Because last year, I think, obviously, I would have been irate had the Bills gone out and lost that game. But I think it would have been easier to digest. This is not going to be... And we're talking hypotheticals here. We're previewing this game. We're talking about where our thoughts are. I'll get to some comments in a second to see where you guys are at. By the way, I see some bickering down there. I've been seeing some bickering all night. No need to bicker. 2 weeks away from ball. Everybody get along. It's going to be good. I know. I guarantee you there's some, I haven't looked. I guarantee you there's some comments in there. Somebody's bitching about me talking about that cruise. Listen, I'm just going to say this right off the bat. with the smoke break, you got to have a little bit of everything. It's a Monday night. We got to have some fun. Can't all be serious all the time. It's a variety show. It's on my mind. I got to get it out there. Got to talk about it. Sit back and enjoy the ride. We're probably going to be here for 3 hours tonight. I haven't even looked, but I guarantee you there's going to be there's some shit back there when I scroll back there. Why? Can we talk about the Bills already? Why is this guy talking about his stupid cruise? My name's on the show, and I was on the cruise, and I hated it. We're going to be here all night, strapped in. You know what I mean? So, anyway, what I'm getting at here is down in the comment section. Everybody just look at peace and love. This is the best time of the year. Are you kidding me? I'd understand a month ago, 2 months ago, where I was at peak losing my mind. Early August, whatever, the worst. But this is the best time of the year. Embrace it. Especially now because it feels like, remember when you were a kid? Something about Christmas Eve was always more exciting than Christmas because it's all about the anticipation. I got that little kid Christmas Eve feeling right now. I truly, truly do. And it's been culminating, right? I've had it for a while, but it's building, it's building, it's building, building. And you got to embrace that feeling. You got to embrace that because it's fun. We're all adults. We all got bullshit going on day after day. This is the fun stuff. Scott Blakely coming in. You're doing great, Z. Thank you. Oh, I appreciate it, Scott. No, I'm just not to diverge at all. I'm just saying I saw some people down here kind of arguing in the chat and stuff. And that's cool, whatever. I mean, I get it. But, we're here for a good time and potentially a long time. We got to see how long we go here. So let's get to some comments actually while we're on that topic before we move on. Richie Forbes coming in. He's saying, damn right, best time of the year. Sophia's coming in. Yeah, I've got that Christmassy feeling too. Isn't it great? Nothing better than when you're a full-ass adult and you got adult shit going on and you get that feeling again, It's the best. You can't replicate it. There's only certain things that can do that, and it's not like it happens all the time. Like, this is truly it. And you get that feeling, I think, every football season, but it's just one more element back to what I keep talking about here about the weight of this game. Where, to me, this is like, so say if every NFL year is you get that Christmas feeling, this feels like the year where the new PlayStation came out. You know what I mean? And you got a real good feeling Santa's bringing it. Every other Christmas is great, but my Christmas list this year wasn't, I didn't really want anything, didn't really need anything, nothing, I'm not in love with it. This one feels like the new PlayStation, the new Xbox just launched, and I got a feeling Santa's got it in his sleigh. That's where I'm at right now. In 2 weeks from tonight, we get to open it up. Now, the question is, when we open up that box, are we getting the PlayStation or are we getting a fat brick of coal? I hope it's the former. I truly, truly do. Scrolling back up through the comments here. Let's see where Debbie's saying, Z-Bot, where are you tailgating for the season opener? It's a great question. I'll be with the AFC East roundtable guys. When I have that info, I'll share it. I don't know exactly where it is. Like I said, Dan Mitchell, he's like, listen, he's like, 2 tickets. You need 2 tickets, open bar. I'm like, tickets for the tailgate? I mean, we're not kidding around here. So when I find out wherever that's at, I'll let you know. I think that we're doing a show from there as well. I think early before the game. Speaking of which, by the way, I think I meant to mention this earlier, but like back to the open bar thing at this tailgate. I'm going to have a couple drinks for sure, have a good time, but a couple max. I'm so dialed. I don't want to be even a bit fuzzy headed for this. I just don't. I am just so dialed in to this game. It's just something about I'm trying to think of if any other one of these games were on the list. And there's some doozies. Like if it was Bills Chiefs, it would feel that big. Bills Bengals, even Bills Dolphins, I think would feel huge. There's a lot of games on here. Bills Eagles. The Bills have so many great games this year that are going to be so tough. There's a million different examples of games that could be incredible. But This just feels like if you could handpick one game on the Bills' schedule to open things up with, it would be this. And I don't care what team you're a fan of. Everybody's looking forward to this game. Everybody. It's been Jets. And I know that I've talked about my nerves and where they're stemming from, and they're real. They're real. I mean, back to the Christmas analogy. I bet you a lot of you had nerves before Christmas. Oh, I wonder what did Santa bring me? Did he come? What did I get? Like for me right now, the nerves are just, one, the anticipation, the excitement, but also just all that goes into this game and what I think's on the line. But don't get it twisted. Anybody who's donning a Jets uniform or a Jets jersey in that stadium that night's feeling the same exact way. Probably times 10. And the reason for that is because all their poker chips are in the middle of the table. Yes, do I think the Bills Super Bowl window is closing? Absolutely. Of course I do. With each passing year goes a bit of a drop in that window. But the Jets window was never open to begin with. They feel as though now they have gone out and paid somebody to jam this thing open. I mean, absolutely rip this thing off the hinges open. Question is it going to stay open? Is it going to gradually shut? Or is it going to slam shut? And I think that we get a good indication of what these New York Jets are going to be to some capacity on that Monday night. I'm not saying that either team is going to be defined by this one particular game. But we're going to see a lot of what we can expect from both of these teams going forward throughout the year. And that's one of the other reasons why I am extremely nervous. Because you're going to see a mini roadmap here of what two of the top teams on paper in the AFC are looking like. Right? And you're also going to see what the potential for this AFC East route is going to look like as well. But for the Jets, I mean, for us as Bills fans, we know to some degree, or almost entirely, what this looks like. Not a whole hell of a lot has changed. But for the Jets, the entire franchise has changed. It doesn't even feel like the New York Jets anymore. It feels like an entirely new team. It feels like an expansion team. This is a whole different ballgame. I mean, we know what this is, what the Josh Allen experience is, and we just only hope going into each season that we can expect to see even better and more and whatever else, right? But for them, I mean, think about how new this is. You go from maybe the worst quarterback in the entire league last year in Zach Wilson. You go from a team that felt like they had a terrific defense and some great young pieces, but just couldn't get it together, quarterback away type thing. You go from a team that at that given moment in last year's season felt like they were not close to being on the level of a Bengals, a Bills, a Chiefs, or even some of the other towards the top contenders, right? Chargers, Dolphins, Jaguars. They've gone from what felt like bottom feeders to some capacity at times to right up there in the conversation. And it's just all out on the line on that Monday. If I'm a Jets fan, I'm not sleeping for days before that game. I think the nerves for them got to be at an all-time high. And once again, in their defense, I'm not saying it's because you're scared of the Bills or you're scared of Josh Allen, even though you should be. I'm saying because there's when you do a lot of when you put a lot up, when you make a big bet, the nerves are a lot higher. You go to the roulette table and put $5 down on black, you lose, whatever. Who cares? But you walk up to the roulette wheel and put 50 grand on black, you're going to care. And if you win, it's going to be unbelievable. If you lose, especially depending on how you lose, it's going to be one of the worst feelings on the planet. And for the New York Jets, I think on that Monday night, they're going to see if Aaron Rodgers is going to be getting mauled back there behind this offensive line. They're going to see if this defense truly is going to live back up to the hype to being one of the best in the league, one of the best young defenses in the league. They're going to see if Garrett Wilson can go out and make a name for himself this season after one of the better rookie years a wide receiver has had as one of the more prominent top wide receivers in this league. They're going to see if they're going to have the ability to hang with the big dogs in the AFC playoff race this year. They're going to see if they have the ability to compete for a division title. And what gets lost in the weeds here, I think, as well, is that the New York Jets have the longest active playoff drought in the NFL. It's not like the Jets just went from, I mean, even with the Patriots a couple of seasons ago when the Bills just decapitated them in the wild card game. They still made the damn playoffs. And we all know damn well that just getting there, it means a lot because it's coming from a fan base that never got there for 20 years, right? Getting there is something. The Jets currently have the longest active playoff drought in the league. It's very rare that you see a team go from a bottom feeder and completely skyrocket up the list to a contender. If you're a Jets fan and you're not nervous, you're lying to yourself. And it's not because of the Bills. It's not because of whatever else. It's all internal. It's got nothing to do with the outside factors. It's the fact that you have built this team up from being a team that you barely looked at on your schedule to being one that you look at and you're saying, man, if it goes right, it could go real right. It could go really right. This is a rarity. It almost has an NBA type feel to it, right? Where all of a sudden, the Celtics were okay. Oh my God, now Paul Pierce has Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen and we're winning championships. Or the Heat, whatever. Oh my God, now we have Chris Bosh, LeBron James, D Wade's got help. We're winning multiple titles here. It's got that type of feel to it. It's way more rare in football though, because you have a way larger roster. There's only 5 guys out on the court in the NBA. And one guy means a hell of a lot more out on that court. In the NFL, you have to have 11 on each side of the ball, and you have to have damn good players to fill those 22 spots in order to compete. The Jets felt like they had about a third of that last year. Now it feels much higher. There's a lot on the line for the New York Jets in that game. A lot. Get to some super chats here while I see him. Dog 26, he's coming in. He says, ready to go to war. Tired of all the talk, the disrespect from the media. Fan base is talking shit. Damn, like we ain't one of the best teams in the league. Jets this, Jets that. 9-11, get this effing work. Preach. Couldn't have said it better myself, Dog 26. I hope you guys are as pumped as I am. I know Dog is. You've noticed that the disrespect for the Bills to some capacity has kind of wavered a little bit recently now that Stephon Diggs. I guess I spoke too soon. I forgot that I wasn't able to address the Stephen A bullshit. It feels as though things have gotten better since all of that kind of started to go away. I think people are realizing as closer the season, the closer the season comes, the more that you have to understand that there's no legitimate argument for the Bills to just have a dramatic fall off. There just isn't one. Unless Josh Allen just regresses to Jamarcus Russell and, half the Bills defense goes on IR and whatever else. I mean, there really just isn't a great argument. But they had 2 that they felt were legitimate. And one of them was the Josh Allen regression that I just feel like doesn't exist. And then the other was the Stephon Diggs BS. The Allen regression, I think the closer you get to the season, you watch him make one of the most absurd throws any quarterback anybody throwing a ball on the entire planet can make the other day against the Bears, like it's playing in the backyard. Even though it's just one throw, I would hope it would click to people where you're just like, yeah, am I really going to bank on the Bills being a bad team this year because of that guy? Probably not smart. And then the Diggs thing to begin with, if you bought into that to begin with, I feel sorry for you. And hopefully by now you've learned. Stephen A didn't. And I don't know what that was. Not going to waste much time on it. But it's just like this thing could never die. Nobody could just let it die. There was no substance to this ever, once. Nothing to it. And everybody dragged it on for months. And it was finally going away. And Stephen A, with this platform, and I mean, I don't understand it. How do you be one of the biggest media personalities on the planet, live on the worldwide leader, and just saying, I got sources saying he don't want to be in Buffalo, and you're saying it like it's a certainty? If you're going to say something like that, you're going to have to give me the source. It's not like you're making these predictions and you're like, listen, I just don't think. He's like, if he was like, I got word that I just don't think Diggs is all in this year, or I don't think Diggs is going to be all that great this year, whatever. You'd kind of look past it. You'd be like, whatever. I don't love the take. Move on. But when you're out there sitting there and you're saying, I got sources saying, he don't want to be in Buffalo. Very serious like that. And then you got nothing. You got Stephon Diggs coming out almost immediately saying that's an absolute load of horse shit. After he's now multiple times said that he wants to retire in Buffalo. He loves being a Bill. He loves where he's at. I mean, what are we doing here? What are we doing? They're trying, but there's nothing there. And that's why I think people are coming around a little bit. At least they should be, rather. I've seen less of it. That was the last of it, obviously, and it was the most recent. But I think it was one more example to show you that there just isn't a whole lot to throw at the dartboard here when it comes to trying to find a way to knock these Bills down in your mind going into the season. Because really, what is it? I think this roster is better than it was a season ago. And this is a roster last year that everybody had going to the Super Bowl. Consecutive 13-win seasons. Where's this dramatic downfall coming from? And I think people are starting to realize they don't have an answer. And I don't think that there is one. If it happens, we'll have to see how that unfolds. But I truthfully can only think of a couple of examples. One would be an injury to Josh Allen, which would derail any of these top teams. So that's a mute point. If Mahomes goes down, the Chiefs' season's over. If Burrow re-aggravates this injury that he's currently dealing with and he's done for the year, the Bengals' season's over. This could be said for just about any team with a star top quarterback. Hell, the Jets. Aaron Rodgers is going out 2 weeks from tonight behind one of the worst offensive lines he's played with in his career. He goes down. We know what the Jets are when he's not out there. So that's just, you could argue that with anybody. Yes, if Josh Allen goes down, pack it in. It's done. But that goes for all of these teams. So you rule that out. The only other thing you could foresee, or as far as trying to drum up an idea, would be that all of a sudden Josh Allen just forgets how to play football. And where's the argument for it? Because I know it was one drive this past Sunday, but I don't think he forgot how to play ball. Dog coming back in here with another super chat. He's saying, but wholeheartedly disagree with you, Z-Bot. Oh, we're taking a different spin here. Window is always open with Josh. Always. Got to put the right team around him. So let's get into that a little bit here, because I've saw a couple comments talking about the window, and I want to say what I mean by that. There's a difference between the window being open and it being or the amount in which it is open. Without Josh Allen, the Bills' window just wasn't open. Hell, getting to the playoffs, that window wasn't even open. We got a little breeze that came through into the house, into the scorching hot living room. We got a little breeze that passed through the crack of the window when the Tyrod Taylor-led Buffalo Bills played the Jacksonville Jaguars, however many years ago it is now, ending the drought. But other than that, we were sitting inside, and if it was cold out, we were freezing. And if it was hot out, we were hotter than hell. I mean, it was just, there wasn't any. Josh Allen comes, that window is open. You're not closing that window. The window is never going to find, the lip of the window is never going to find itself touching the bottom, ever, with Josh Allen on this team. However, there is varying degrees in which the amount of space between the bottom of that window and the top is open. And the last couple of seasons, it's like walking over to the window on a steaming hot day, and you got the oven on in the kitchen, and you go over to that window and you crank that thing all the way up to the top, throw the lock on it, and forget it. That's where we were. But as we've watched the AFC get dramatically better, dramatically quickly, we've watched the AFC East go from what felt like the Bills division to now you could make legitimate arguments all around. You're watching a Bills team that is going to have significant pieces no longer on this team in the very near future. The window will go up and down, just like it has with every great team throughout history. And to think that it hasn't gone down just a bit based on the way that they ended last season is wrong. It did, because it has now been, we've been over this. It's kind of like the stock analogy that I use, where they start up at the AFC Championship game. It drops down to a incredibly tough, hard-fought, could have went either way loss in the divisional, then to getting the doors blown off of them the following divisional. If we're using the window analogy, that would be 3 or 2 degrees of closing it a little bit as the rest of the AFC gets better. But as you go into every given year, it's a fresh slate. It's a fresh slate. The only reason you have to understand that window can't be as open as it has been is because, one, as I keep mentioning, and I can't say it enough because it is the biggest factor, the talent level throughout the conference is just absurd. It's insane. And having to win, if you don't get the 1 seed, having to win 3 consecutive AFC games and then the Super Bowl, I mean, that is, I can't think of anything harder. In my opinion, whoever wins the AFC Championship, I'm going to give them a ring. Give them a Super Bowl ring, because it's not even comparable. It is insane. I mean, the Bills could go 17-0 in the regular season, and you'd still feel a little nervous going into the playoffs. That's how good this AFC is, right? So that's that. And then, like I mentioned, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer are 2 of the biggest pieces. That's what I always go back to, because that to me is a lot. And then, Von Miller and Diggs and whatever else. I don't like talking about this because frankly, right now, I don't care. This is what I'm getting at. The window analogy, whatever, we're going to go up and down for some time here. But as long as Josh Allen is on this team, don't get it twisted. The window is open. It is open. But I think right now it's as open as it's going to be for a while. Because think about it. This team is still in the prime of what many would think to be a Super Bowl caliber team. I mean, it is. It is. If you look right now, this Buffalo Bills team has the number 6 overall defense, number 6 total defense, right? You got the number 9 passing defense, the number 4 rushing defense, and the number 2 scoring defense. And that hasn't even touched on the fact that they have one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league, one of the best wide receivers in the entire league, a potential rookie prospect in Dalton Kincaid that we have feelings that the sky could be the limit. I think an upgraded run game, right? This team, it doesn't get a whole lot better. That's what I'm getting at. And going into this season, it's a fresh slate. So I don't care what happened last year. I don't care what happens next year. I don't care about Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer's contract situation. I don't care about, Josh Allen's contract kicking in and what that's going to wind up doing to the salary cap, whatever. I don't care about any of that right now. Who the hell cares? The NFL is a right now league. Always has been, always will be. What are you doing for me today? I mean, can you find a better example than what just happened with Trey Lance? The San Francisco 49ers gave up one of the biggest hauls in draft history to draft a quarterback who they just traded for a 4th-round pick without ever playing. What did he start? 2 games, 3 games? I don't even know what it was. Might not even have been that. This is the league you're dealing with here. Things go, I mean, this is like, you blink, you know how it goes. One Sunday, you're the best team in the planet. The next, you're the worst. It just happened with the Jets in one offseason. Bottom bracket team who now every single person has in the top bracket in one offseason. And this coming year, one blink of an eye, all of a sudden, this team's great. This team blows. That's what happens. And it happens with teams, and it happens with players. Constantly. I mean, that Trey Lance situation is wild. They gave up 3 first-round draft picks. And if you go back and look at some of the names that were drafted before, after, and around where Trey Lance was drafted, it's got to make you sick to your stomach. Especially knowing that the Niners still, after one of the worst draft blunders in the history of the NFL, still are probably the second best team in the AFC, NFC. Many would argue the first best. And it's insane. But they gave up 3 first-round draft picks for a guy that's never played, and they just handed him off to Jerry Jones for a 4th rounder. And you can make the same argument for Dak Prescott. Now all of a sudden, he feels like he's the face of the franchise. He's got Jerry under lock and key there. He's taking him for a ride contract-wise. Now all of a sudden, Dak, he's got to look over his shoulder a little bit because Trey Lance is going to be coming around for a contract soon, believe it or not. Right? Going to have to pick up an option on him. So now in one night, Dak Prescott goes from the face of the biggest brand in sports to, I don't know what's going on now. And Jerry Jones didn't inform Mike McCarthy. He didn't inform anybody. He went out and just grabbed him. That's this league, man. This league. It's a wild experience, and that's why we all love it so much. It's what makes it so great. It's nuts. It's the greatest thing on the planet. Scrolling down here through some more comments for quick second here, see what everybody's saying. By the way, let me know where you're at mentally going into this game. I'm intrigued to see where you're at. Are you just overly confident? Are you like me where you're confident, but you got those nerves building? Are you doomsday? Are you worried? Did what you saw or did what you see against the Steelers unveil something to you where you're thinking, man, I don't have it, right? Let me know where you're at, because where you're at right now is where you're going to be 2 weeks from now. And back to what I was just talking about. This could change on a dime. I mean, Monday night, you crush the Jets. No matter where you're at right now, you're going to be feeling different, or vice versa. You're going to be feeling different. It's a weird scenario to be in too right now as a Bills fan. I know Rev likes talking about this because it's accurate, but by the way, nothing like iced coffee at 9 o'clock. But this is accurate. It's tough being in a situation like we currently are with the Bills, where you know that the regular season, obviously it matters a great deal in regard to the playoff seeding and how you end up getting to the Super Bowl. But it's a weird position to be in where you are conditioned now to be a playoff team at the very worst. And knowing that really all that matters are a very few amount of games in January to determine it all. I mean, last year was the perfect example. Obviously, you win 13 games, and then all of a sudden it just looked like you didn't even belong out in the field. So that's a weird mindset to be in, and it's kind of tough to re-gear a little bit as well, because you see that unfold firsthand. It's kind of tough to wrap your mind around, where you go into the regular season. And I bring Rev up because he mentions this a lot, and I think there's a truth to it. And I wonder if anybody else here feels the same, where you go into the regular season and you're thinking to yourself, I can't put any stake in any of this. I can't put any stake in whether or not they beat the shit out of the Jets week 1 or they get the shit beat out of them week 1, because frankly, all that's going to matter is what happens come January. Now, I find myself to be in a different boat, where I think that I need to see more of a level of consistency that I think, despite winning 13 games last year, wasn't quite on display. We've talked about this a bunch, where I just felt like there were times, even though the Bills were winning, they weren't winning in either convincing fashion or in a way that you felt comfortable with it, with the overall aura of the team. That's what I'm looking for. And I think last year we might have gotten a false sense of that really early, right? Because think about it. When you looked at the initial first 2 games of the year, where we had circled to be 2 of the tougher games, the Rams and the Titans, the Bills go out and they absolutely destroy both of them. And at the time, we're thinking, Well, the Rams just came off the Super Bowl, so the Bills are even better than we could have imagined. And the Tennessee Titans just came off of being the number 1 seed in the AFC, and we beat the living hell out of them too. Oh my God, are the Bills? Are we going to be threatening the 70s Dolphins here, type of thing? But we come to find out that none of that was true. The Titans weren't a very good team. The Rams certainly weren't a very good team, right? So I think that it's tough. It's really tough to gear. I just think that this season, I can't foresee the Jets not being at the very least competitive with this roster. Frankly, last year with the injuries and just the overall outcome of the year, the Rams weren't competitive. They had the worst, statistically in record speaking, they had the worst team in the history of the NFL coming off of a Super Bowl. So no matter how you look at it, this week 1 game, the Jets are an infinitely better team. This is going to be an infinitely bigger sample size, I think, with towards the ability of trying to decipher what the forecast of the year is going to look like. There was a real false sense of dominance early last year. And we had no reason to believe that we had no reason at the time to think that it wasn't legit. Because like I just mentioned, all we knew was that the year prior, Rams just won it all, and the Titans were the number 1 seed. I mean, that's something. But then again, it's nothing. And it's a weird paradox you find yourself in sometimes as fans, where a lot of times, all of this stuff we talk about, it just means nothing. And it seems like it means everything. Right? And that's sometimes tough to grapple with. Because right now I got a million things, and this is kind of circling back to where I'm at with this Jets game, where I think it is just huge. I have it as a must-win game. I can't stop. I'm having a tough time finding additional words to express just how much I think this game means. But the reality of the situation is, they could go out and shit themselves, and it might not make a lick. They could go on and beat every team the rest of the year like they beat New England in the wild card a couple of years ago. That's just the league. But the difference between week 1 and everything else, and this is the primary difference, you have all of this build up on one game. You know, like a perfect example here for me, at least, would be, okay, you have the Dolphins week 4, and then you immediately got the Jags. Immediately. How long am I going to be able to focus on what just happened against Miami, good, bad, or indifferent, when I got a really good Jacksonville team that I have to play across the pond who's already been there for a week? They're well rested. With the Jets game, it's all we have had on our mind. It's all that's been in front of us for months. Months. And that's the difference. And it just so happens that the one thing we have, I mean, not every team's got to face this. Because if you look at the week 1 schedule, I'll just pull it up here real quick and find an example where, you know, you take a look at, let's say the Vikings, to me, would be a good example. If I'm a Vikings fan and I'm going into week 1 against the Bucs, obviously I'm amped up for the season, but I'm not feeling any type of way about it. 1 p.m. game, Baker Mayfield on the start. I mean, what are the Bucs going to be? I would imagine most everybody in here would join myself in saying that they're probably going to be towards the bottom of the league. You would imagine. If I'm a Vikings fan, I've had months to look at that game, and I'm not finding anything about it that's really bringing up a storyline or getting me nervous, or I'm not getting amped up either way. This is just a dramatic difference. I mean, there's fan bases out there that have a game in front of them, and they've had months to focus on it, and it just doesn't feel like it's anything crazy. But this is a completely different ballgame. And even some of the top, the higher end teams in the AFC, like I said earlier, I haven't really dissected this slate because I've just been so focused on this game. I mean, there's a couple situations that are very similar to this for the Bills. Giants, Cowboys to kick it off. I mean, what a couple of nights MetLife's going to have. Sunday night football, Giants, Cowboys at MetLife. Monday night football, Bills, Jets at MetLife. That's incredible. I think Dolphins, Chargers, that's a real tough one to open the gates with for either side. 49ers, Steelers could be very intriguing, maybe more so than anybody thought. Bengals, Browns, that's another one I got circled just because what are the Browns going to be? What are the Browns going to be? That's a team, by the way. You want to talk about a team you just don't think about? Be honest with yourself right now. When you think about the AFC as of late, and you've thought about who's going to be in the Bills' way, who are the Bills going to have to compete with to go the distance, have you thought about the Browns once? I have not. At all. Frankly, in that division, I think about the Ravens and the Steelers before I even get to that point. And you have to imagine they have to be better. And when you look at their roster, it is not bad. And if Deshaun Watson can get back to where he was, I mean, this is just back to the overall sentiment surrounding this AFC. We're talking about a Browns team that if Deshaun Watson can find a way to get back to what he used to be and justify the amount of money that was paid to him, ruining the entire pay structure for quarterbacks in an instant. All of a sudden, the Browns are like, they're a team, man. They're a team. And right now, you haven't thought about them once. That's the gauntlet that is currently awaiting every single team in the AFC. And the Bills have the fourth toughest schedule? You look at the AFC East scheduling, I think number one toughest schedule is the Patriots. I think number 3 is the Bills, 4 is the Dolphins, and 6 or 7 is the Jets, something like that. Wild. And that, you want to know why the schedules are like that as far as strength of schedule and difficulty, because they got to play each other. They got to eat each other alive. James coming in with the super chat. My man, James, he's saying, Zeba, our biggest loss this season was Edmonds. I think you would agree. Curious as to who you think was our biggest pickup, excluding the draft. Interesting. All right, let's transition a little bit then. Let's talk about what we saw from the final preseason game, which just so happened to feature the aforementioned Tremaine Edmonds, who's no longer a Buffalo Bill. Look, this has always been my stance on Tremaine Edmonds. If the Bills had the money and they had the ability to keep him on the roster, they 100% would have. But the amount of money that the Bears had at their disposal and the amount of money they were willing to pay him, there was no chance you're going to be able to retain Tremaine Edmonds without messing something else up on this roster somewhere, right? That's a team in the Bears who had one of the highest cap rooms available in the entire league this offseason. They love spending their money on defense and linebackers. They always have. And Tremaine Edmonds is potentially in the prime of his career and could only get better. He's still very, very young. Yes, it's a major loss. It's an absolute major loss. But I have to consider what it would have been if they kept him and what else would have been the loss. And would that have been more detrimental? And I would have to imagine this is the conversation that the front office at One Bills Drive had before getting rid of Tremaine Edmonds. They're not going to move off of him unless they felt that that was the most appropriate choice when determining how they were going to shuffle around this depth chart. So the loss is significant. Now, Matt Milano is the most underrated player in the NFL and maybe my favorite Bill, or one of. I just love watching that guy play. It's a work of art. It truly is. He lessens the blow a bit with that loss. What I also think
cushions the blow a little bit as well when you lose a guy like Tremaine Edmonds is the additions you bring back that were not available due to health reasons last year. So you lose Tremaine Edmonds, right? But you're bringing back a fully healthy Trey White. You're bringing back the tandem of Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. You're bringing back Von Miller. So is the absence of Tremaine Edmonds at times going to feel palpable? Yes, for sure. I think it already has to some degree. But will it be made up for in other areas? And I think the answer is an overwhelming yes. Because even without Tremaine Edmonds out on this field going into the season, currently, based on how they ended the year last year, this Bills defense is significantly better. And I also, we don't know what is going to come of the additional linebacker spot next to Matt Milano. We don't know what that's going to develop into. We got some prospects there, right? Inspector, Dotson, Bernard, that are going to be guys that we are going to have to be patient on. But that's the NFL, obviously. Cap casualties all around. And I think based on what the Bills had in front of them, they navigated it quite well. And you always are going to have to walk away from a situation like the Bills were just currently in with Edmonds when you have a team like the Chicago Bears willing to step up to the plate like that. Now, when we're talking about our biggest pickup, to me, it's Damian Harris. And I think we saw it back to the Bears-Bills preseason game the other day. What did we see on the first drive, which was just, I tweeted this out. I said, I want to introduce that drive to my parents. That drive was just, that had me feeling some type of way. Josh Allen slinging that thing like it was a ping pong. But what capped off that drive? Exactly what I am anticipating we're going to see throughout the year. Exactly what I felt was going to be the reasoning behind signing Damian Harris. A 2-yard run on the goal line into the end zone, touchdown Damian Harris, touchdown Buffalo. That to me was the most significant addition to this team for 2 reasons. One, I think it's going to significantly lessen the burden on Josh Allen in the red zone and in certain short yardage areas where he has become a human battering ram in those particular spots, right? 2, this team was not particularly good at all in the red zone last year, at all. And it was because it was strictly the Josh Allen show. And when other teams, especially top-tier defenses, know that, when you don't have a whole lot of your disposal and you don't have a threat behind Josh Allen to run the ball into the end zone, like Devin Singletary, for example, you know how I thought about him. Thought he was better than he was given credit for, but that's not a guy you're handing the ball to on the 5-yard line. He's not that type of back. Enters into the chat Damian Harris, who is exactly that type of back. And I think you saw 2 flashes of things in that one series in the preseason game to cap off the preseason in general against the Bears that I loved, and are 2 things that you look forward to the most when going into this season. One, it's Josh Allen making plays that are just inhuman. The on the run throw. Do you understand how far and that pass was across the body to get there the way it did that fast on the move? It's ridiculous. It looks so easy. It's so not. And the other is Damian Harris capping off that drive. I think you're going to see a lot of the Bills lined up in a mosh pit on the goal line or, somewhere on the 45-yard line, 4th and an inch, and you're going to see a whole lot of what we just saw on that play. And that, to me, is why Damian Harris is one of the bigger signings of the entire offseason for the Bills, and in my opinion, the biggest. Now, somebody I'm going to sign for the rest of the show to come on, join me, be my duo, because we're talking about currently linebackers, Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds, what it used to be. We're talking about duos. Who's going to be the second guy along Matt Milano that's going to be the replacement for Tremaine Edmonds, like we were just talking about? Who's going to be the guy that's going to make the loss of Tremaine Edmonds feel less than what it potentially could be? Well, let's ask my main man, Rico, who's coming on right now. I don't see him. He's frozen. There he is. My brother, Rico, in a different than usual location with the Wi-Fi connection of a bomb shelter in the middle of the ocean. You got me? We're trying here. Look at him. He's got that big smile on. You know, right now he's frozen on that smile, but right now he's like trying to get this all together. You there? Rico's going live from a rotary phone. I'm trying to unmute. You got to unmute yourself there, brother. Jump out and jump back in. It looks like you got the connection stabilized there. Did you see that? Oh, okay. I just got a notification. Can't unmute your guest. The mic isn't connected. You hear that, Rico? It says your mic isn't connected. That's why I couldn't unmute you. Very excited to have Rico hop in and talk about a variety of different things for the remainder of the show tonight. Because listen, there's not a whole lot more time to waste here. We are in preview time. We are in preview mode, and we're going to talk a little bit when he comes on here. We're going to talk a little bit about the roster, which of course finalizes tomorrow at 4 p.m. The Bills have already made a few expected cuts, of course. By tomorrow night, all 32 NFL teams have to finalize their final roster. And we also are going to find out, which I find to be very interesting. We also are going to find out whether or not Jonathan Taylor is going to be traded, because the Indianapolis Colts have set a deadline for him to be traded for tomorrow, because he has to negotiate a salary and a contract with a new team, or in order to do that and make the 53-man roster on whatever new team that is, he's going to have to do so by tomorrow, or at least that's what the Colts are. That's their guidelines for the move here. And we keep hearing almost one name and one name exclusively, and that is the Miami Dolphins. And I don't know. I mean, you just imagine within a 2-week time span, the AFC East adds Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, and Jonathan Taylor to 3 teams not named the Buffalo Bills. Would not feel great. It would not feel great at all. All right, we got Rico back here, I think. Let's see. He's frozen up again. He's trying, man. He's giving it his all. I know he is. I promise you, though, this time it's not my fault. I was just double checking all my little things. It was just double checking to make sure it wasn't. While we wait for him, though, the cuts that have already been made, by the way, and these are ones that, I mean, they're probably guys you don't even know because they were not in really any position to make the team to begin with. But wide receivers, Desmond Patman, Isaiah Coulter, Jace Sternberger, the tight end, linebacker Deshaun White, defensive tackle Cortez Broughton, offensive lineman Garrett McGinn, and safety Jared Maiden. It's courtesy of the Democrat and Chronicle there, my man Sel Mariana, with the updates over on who's in, who's out as of right now. There you are.
You know what? I had to sign in from my phone because the Wi-Fi from my mom's place was just not working. What's up, Z-Bot?
Are you out of town?
I'm out of town, man. I'm in Ontario visiting my mom, man. I had a bachelor party to go to for one of my homies was getting married, so we had to go out there and do our thing. But we here now, baby. We here now. What's up, Z-Bot?
How was the bachelor party? What'd you guys do?
Yo, it was dope, man. Listen, I'm not a drinker.
Yeah,
I'm not a drinker, and I had quite a few things to sip on, and we did a Scotch tasting. Let me tell you something, man. Scotch is not my thing.
Okay.
I had something called an old fashioned. I've had a old fashioned before, so I was like, let me partake in an old fashioned. Boy, did that take me a minute to sip on. It took me a minute. You can't just sip that thing and just be done. You got to really take your time drinking that damn thing.
Did they make it with the gigantic square ice cube where the guy brought out the flamethrower on it as well?
No. So this was it was like everything was brought to my friend's house. He's got a beautiful home and a really nice home. So everything was catered. So they brought everything they could to do it. So there was missing that big ice cube. So he was putting little tiny ice cubes in it. It didn't hit the way it was supposed to. I've had them before. It was good, but I took my time. But the big one where we were drinking like $140 bottles of scotch, $150 of scotch. And I was like, this is not my thing. I just like a nice drink that tastes damn good and get me to my point. But one thing that I was told to do was sip on that thing. Now I can see why people just like put a little bit of scotch in a cup. There's never a huge cup. It's just a little tiny little bit. And you got to sip on that and just really enjoy the scotch. For those that really enjoy scotch, I don't. I just don't. I have no love for it whatsoever. However, I can appreciate those that do know their scotch and love their scotch. And the one thing this one dude told me to do was take that sip of that scotch. Once you let it really like kind of, you really taste it, inhale. And it's a whole different experience. I was like, golly, he was right.
Nasally, like smell it?
It was I don't know how to even explain it, bro. It was like, you can appreciate those that love scotch. I'm just not with it. I'm just not with it, man.
I mean,
I'm not a White Claw guy, that's for sure. Dave Coolers, don't disrespect me like that. Don't disrespect me like that. I'm no White Claw guy. But I do like my you know what I mean? I like my rum. I like my Malibu rum, and let's mix it up and we're good to go.
I mean, it's tough to turn one down one of those. They always taste good. The White Claws, I'm all right with, except if you drink too many of them, your stomach turns into a ticking time bomb because it's all that seltzer just bottling up inside. So I can only drink so many of those. Yeah,
not for me. But that scotch was, I have respect for it. It's it goes down smooth, boy, but it's hot. that shit will put some hair on your chest.
The more money you spend, the smoother it goes down. But I've never, like you said, I have respect for people who get into all that. I do. But I've never thought it was worth the money to justify that, what I find to be that insignificant of a difference. I mean, I know it is significant in the taste and how it goes down. But like if you're going out for a party or whatever, you're not doing that. I feel like you're only doing that in occasions like what you guys were doing, where you're strictly there just to appreciate the scotch, right?
You definitely are. And there was one drink that I had called a Negroni. I think it was called a Negroni. Holy jumps. Three spirits in one drink. And I took a sip of that thing. That thing was bitter as ever. And I was like, how do humans consume this? It was like a vermouth with gin, and it was like some other drink. I can't remember what it was. But I was like, yo, I'm out.
The vermouth,
I took a sip of it. I was like, I can't do this.
The vermouth can get a little dicey.
Bro, it was
you know what I mean?
Yeah, nothing sweet about any of those drinks. Man. Vermouth, gin, and it was one other drink. It was called Negroni or Negroni. Yeah. Bro, done. I'm out of here.
Did it get you feeling a little shifty though, or what?
Oh, I was. Man, I slept like a baby. I slept good. No kids waking me up. I was A-okay. I did what I needed to do.
Well, the Bills.
So what are you talking today, man? Talk to me. Well, I know we've been talking for a while now. What's up?
Yeah, I spent about an hour and a half, kind of just right off the dome, and maybe we'll start here, and then we'll get into the roster a little bit. Although I don't know, other than a couple of key positions, to me, it's, when you get down to the 53 man, you pretty much are in the know as far as what is going to be, in front of you. I think outside of potentially linebacker, right, and corner, but I think we saw what we were going to be expecting to see throughout the regular season against the Bears this past weekend. Although in the beginning, I talked about my vacation I just went on with Carolina. We went on a cruise. We were not fans. I spent a good amount of time on that, which was not Bill's talk, by the way, Rico. You know that. Yeah. So then we have spent the last hour or so diving into our feelings currently, where we are heading into week one. So let me set the stage for you, and then let's get your thoughts, because it's here. 2 weeks from tonight, the way you feel right now is going to be the way you are going to be feeling 2 weeks from tonight at kickoff. Where I'm at is I have felt it has been increasing over time, and now it's really coming to the forefront. I kind of equated it to it's kind of like Christmas here, and it feels like one of the best Christmases where Santa's bringing something good, because not only is the season right around the corner, but you got one of the games of the year right off the bat with the amount at stake. It's just wild to me. The amount of stuff at stake here, the amount of storylines and the weight of this game. Yep. So we are kind of delving into the emotions surrounding where we are as a fan going into this game and what the impact is going to be. And I have been kind of stressing here where I'm coming from. And that is that I am extremely nervous for this game. And it's not because I'm scared of the Jets or scared of anything, but I'm not scared, excuse me. I want to make sure that I make that clear because that always gets confused. You know that you cannot say nerves without saying scared because that seems to be conjoined. I'm nervous because I think that this has a insane amount of weight on it for a week 1 game. And we have had this long to kind of think on it. And I think the more you think about something, the more nervous you get. I also think that the Jets side of things, they have to be incredibly nervous. I was saying that if you're a Jets fan, you're lying to yourself if you're not nervous. You have got an insane amount bet on this year, and you are going to get a very good look at what you can expect from this Jets team with Aaron Rodgers in a game that's going to be against the team you're going to have to get past if you're going to want to do what everybody's saying the Jets are inevitably supposed to do this coming season. So let's start with you with the Bills side of things. 2 weeks removed. Where are you at right now with your overall thoughts on how you feel about going into this game and overall your mentality as far as I think it's going to be a dominating game from the Bills, a dominating game from the Jets. I'm a little bit nervous. Whatever. Where are you currently at and why?
Well, I'm gonna tell you this right now. People, I'm gonna stick to how I've been talking about it. I'm gonna be consistent with what I've been saying, and I don't feel good about week 1 against the Jets. I think the Jets just have. Listen, man, it's 9-11, right? 9-11 is the game. Is that when we played that? 9-11 is the game. It's in Jets country. It's built for the Jets to win this game, and I feel that that's what's going to happen. However, I do feel better, much better about how we did in our 3rd preseason game. We put a drive together. We marched all the way down the field, and we finished with a score, and that's what we want, and that's what I needed to see.
Set pretty low though, wasn't it? After the week prior.
Well, and this is what I'm saying. So am I buying that? Am I buying that? No, I'm not. I'm not buying it. What I needed to see.
You're not buying either one?
I'm not buying. Listen, I love that we were able to march down the field and do what we needed to do, but we're in our 3rd preseason game where most of these guys are resting their guys, and who knows who the hell was starting on that. It was optic for the optics. We needed to see that, but I would have rather seen it against Pittsburgh Steelers when the Pittsburgh Steelers had all their starters out and we had our guys out and we shit the bed. So enough to say that week 1 against the Jets, I'm not satisfied. So I'm going to need to see a level of consistency with that. Now, I love that we were able to put something together and drive down the field and people were getting in there. I was thrilled to see that, but the Jets there's something about this week 1 matchup that I'm just not feeling. Am I scared of the Jets? No. Do I respect the hell out of the Jets? Yes. People want to talk about, yo, Rico, you shook. Call me shook. Call me scared. Call me whatever you want to call me. I just don't like the Bills winning this. Now, do I want them to win? Of course I want them to win. I hate the thought of starting 0-1. I absolutely despise it. I do not want to start 0-1. But the way things are coming along, I just don't see us doing well. However, I do want to preface this though, because James Cook has shown me some really good things. I'm not going to say I'm impressed with what I've seen from James Cook, but I liked what I saw. And the thing that actually, I'll use this, the thing that impressed me the most, because I didn't really think much of him, was his pass blocking ability. He stuck his nose in the linebacker's chest on 3 occasions that he was the one that brought the contact instead of the contact being brought to him. I loved every bit of it. And that shows me that he can be trusted on 3rd downs, and he will be trusted on 3rd downs, not only to go out and run a route, but he's going to be there to pass block and protect Josh Allen. And I love the fact that he's able to do that. So I was really impressed with James Cook's ability to really stick his nose in there. And obviously the biggest question mark is the O-line. And as good as that Jets defensive front is going to be, I worry about that. I worry about them making Josh Allen run like a chicken with his head cut off and just not getting settled behind that line. There's so many things that you can hit with this, but everything's going to be answered. First week against the Jets, we will soon know where we stand. And I'm hoping we get the dub, but I don't feel good about it. That's my stance right now.
That's where my nerves stand from, because I think you get to see a lot of the good and the bad on display in a game that I just think has a massive amount of implications surrounding it. You had just, we're going to get to a couple of things that you just mentioned, because I like a couple of things that you said that I want to dive into. One in which I had asked the audience earlier. I said, did what you saw from the Steelers impact how you feel about the overall regular season? You sort of just alluded to the fact that it might have done that for you. Is that the case?
100%.
Okay. Why
100%.
is that? What is it about it that really hits home with you, and why you think that's going to be a factor?
Because whether preseason was 3 weeks the way it is now, or it was 4 weeks, but week 2 is usually where, you know what I'm saying, you get an extensive look at what your offense is going to look like. You get an extensive look at what your defense is going to look like. And you have an idea of what the chemistry is with your squad. We absolutely got fucking dog walked by the Steelers. And the Steelers, respectfully, they're a good team. I think they're going to really do some good things this year.
They've been rolling.
And what stood out to me the most was our offense stayed in. Second team, Steelers team stayed, and we still weren't able to muster anything. So that had me concerned. So obviously they got their act together. They really put some things together, and they really game planned it slightly, a little bit, just so we can have some kind of chemistry. Obviously in this third preseason game, but that Steelers game really stood out. It really did. And it got all the nasty Bills fans out there talking a whole bunch of ish, but a lot of that ish was truthful, because we saw some nastiness, and that O-line was the one that looked like they were getting exposed the most. But Allen didn't help the case. Allen did not help the case. Allen was getting out of the pocket way sooner than he was supposed to, whether he was feeling too giddy or he was just needed to get to settle down. And these are the games you needed to settle down. So I liked seeing what I saw in the third preseason game, where he settled down. He was able to kind of breathe and kind of hit his targets downfield. So I like that part. But that Steelers game really stood out to me. And I'm still like, boy, if they look at the film on that Steelers game and see what they did to us, we're going to see what's really good. So we'll see. But I'm looking forward to week 1. Very much so.
I want to piggyback on what you just said, because that to me is something that I think was the most prominent factor of that Steelers game that stood out, right? It was the O-line, and that was the immediate, wow, looks like Josh is kind of running for his life a bit here. However, PFF comes out with the numbers afterwards, and our good friend Joe Marino over at Locked On Bills, one of the best in the biz, he was discussing this on Twitter the other day. This is where I first saw it, and it kind of clicked to me in a way that I hadn't thought about yet, that the offensive line looked worse at face value than it actually was, because Josh Allen, according to PFF, was responsible for 50% of the pressure that he had seen through the first 2 preseason games, which obviously indicates he's hanging on to the ball too long, therefore facing additional pressure that wouldn't be there otherwise, not necessarily on the offensive line. It was up like 30% from where it was a year ago. Is that something that you factored in and you think is going to be a continuous problem, or are you kind of looking at it and saying, yeah, because to me, I can't put much weight into one preseason game, good, bad, or whatever. I can't, but that is something that with Josh Allen's game, I almost wonder, and I wonder where you're at with this. I almost wonder if that's just something you're going to have to deal with, because Josh Allen is not going. And Deion Dawkins, by the way, he told us this pretty much straight up himself, where when you're playing offensive line for Josh Allen, there's a lot going on behind you. It's not an easy thing to do. Do you think that that's going to be a continuous problem? And do you think that it's something that's going to go away? Because I just think that that's going to be, that's really just part of his game. It's just a matter of whether or not he's going to be decreasing that number, or if it's going to be up towards where it was. I doubt that it'll be that high, but it's still a part of his game.
Listen, let's keep it all the way a buck. We played the Steelers and their starters, and we played the Bears and their starters. Let's cut it. Let's cut the bullshit. All right, they're not the same. So now, I know Scott Blake says zero scheming means nothing. We got this. Listen, zero scheming means nothing, but it means something. And I used to be on the train with everybody else that preseason means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. The only thing preseason means, now that I've kind of refocused it and look at it differently now, is the record is 0-0. But you know what does matter? When you're not being schemed, it means you have to be better than me or I have to be better than you because it's man to man, mano mano, no scheme, no nothing. Am I better than you? And that Steelers game showed us that the old line was a little shaky. Now, Allen, on the other hand, was also shaky as well, which kind of coincides with one another. There was no chemistry. There was no trust. And Allen's leaving the pocket too soon. And when you leave the pocket too soon, you're not letting your guys really develop their full block. So at the end of the day, here's what I look at it this way, right? It's a mixture of both. And we got a great test as the Steelers. It woke us up, and we're about to get another test against the Jets. A very good defensive team, a very good defensive front. You got Jermaine Johnson on there. You got Williams in the middle. So there's going to be a lot of pressure coming at Josh Allen. They're going to disguise things. They're going to try to confuse him. And on top of that, they got a lockdown corner. So a lot of what happened last year is going to try to happen this year. So hopefully Dorsey learned from year one. Dorsey knows how to utilize his tight end. He knows how to get Steph Diggs off X onto the Y and move them all over the place. And we space these guys out and really expose them. And it's just going to come down to that. But do I trust this O-line? Not so much. I don't trust the right side. I love what Torrance has been able to do, but Spencer Brown is the one that I worry about. Deion Dawkins looks a little shaky, but he's a veteran guy. He'll get his act together. But right now, Josh is going to have to trust that line.
Dawkins has been getting. I stood out to me because we talked to him about, the criticism that he deals with. I've been seeing a lot of that with him recently, which has concerned me because there's part of me, I don't know at times whether or not it is a him issue or the way that the play is kind of developing issue. I'm not entirely sure at times. I also think that some of these defensive fronts you're facing at times, they're going to be facing it throughout the year. I mean, they're unreal. And I think Josh Allen's conditioned to battle probably sooner than he should. And I think sometimes that reflects poorly on the line, including Deion Dawkins. But it's one thing I've noticed that he seems to be getting, him and Spencer Brown seem to be getting a lot of the target on this
as they should. And guess what? Brandon Beane may have been silent. I mean, listen, we tried to land Trey Lance. So Brandon Beane is trying to move and he's trying to work, right? So don't think that he's done looking at that right tackle spot, not to replace Spencer Brown and not to replace, because you got to give Spencer Brown his ability to dig deep and get in the groove of things. But we don't have much depth behind him. Questenberry is cool and all, but rather someone a little better than Questenberry. So we're going to be watching the waiver wire. We're going to be watching who's getting released. And tomorrow is going to be a massive day. It's cut day. We got to get down to 53. So look for Brandon Beane to, in the next few days, to land someone that could back up Spencer Brown, but could compete with Spencer Brown if Spencer Brown doesn't, get his act together. Because right now, Spencer Brown has not looked impressive, not an iota. He's looked not good. So that is a problem. And if you cannot be trusted, my friend, and you got Josh Allen giddy in the backfield and you're making him take off sooner than he's supposed to, that throws off timing for his receivers, that throws off timing for everything else, and that throws off the coaches to say, get that dude out of there and get someone that's competent enough that can hold the damn line down. So a lot of things going to have to happen, and it starts with the line, and you got to protect 17, and we go from there.
Fluffy coming in, the GOAT. Fluffy, he's saying, by the way, he's a rum guy. He's all over the rum with you. But he's kind of saying what we're talking about here, and this is one thing that I think might be a factor. I don't see how it could. And I feel like, you ever seen that video where they give the guy a fake arm and they hit it with a mallet and he still reacts to even though it's not actually his arm getting hit? I think that that's kind of what you get here with Allen at times, where you just assume that this pocket's going to break down, even though it hasn't fully yet, and he does bail out of it. The thing with it, and the thing that I struggle with as far as how much I put into letting it affect me or not, is I think at times it also develops into some of his greatest plays, which we just saw on Sunday or Saturday rather, where he runs out of the pocket, extends the play, and throws the ball across his body in a way that maybe two other guys on the planet can do. Well, there's also other times like you just mentioned where it kind of throws the play off. The routes are all over the place now. The line's kind of, but to me, I just think once again, if you were to eliminate that entirely from Josh Allen's game, then I'm not entirely sure if he's completely Josh Allen anymore. And I think the problem that you have to deal with when it comes to taking the good from these things is that there is going to be, at times, there's going to be breakdowns in the play that wouldn't be there otherwise because of the type of quarterback he is, which is make the play at all cost. And I think at times he finds himself trying to make a play too early where he might not have to. But those are some moments in certain situations at times where they turn into plays that, I mean, you've never seen anything like it.
So a lot of the things that you're seeing too is that they're longer developing plays, right? Instead of your 3-step drop, a lot of what you saw Josh attempting somewhat where your little 5-step drops. So when you drop it down from 3 to 5, where your 3 is like a 1, 2, 3, it's got to be out there. Your 5 is where you got to let these routes develop and get deep.
Yes.
This is where you got to anchor down as an old lineman. You got to really give your quarterback that time, that split second that he needs to deliver and step up in that pocket and go. You got to let him do it. But Josh, you can't, just because you don't see what you like, you can't bail right away. You got to give it some time. But it's preseason, it's early. It's going to take time for them to, get their act together, which they will. We're still one of the best teams in the game right now. So it's just a matter of getting your feet wet. And once Allen gets hit, you know what it is, man. You get hit once, and then it's time to get busy, right? Okay, I got punched in my mouth. All right, I taste the blood. All right, let's go, right?
That's the thing. He doesn't even care about getting hit. He just wants to make the play. That's the thing. I don't think it's not like he's scared of someone coming and hitting him.
Definitely not.
He's scared of not making something out of that play. That's what it is, right? So that's the ultimate key here. And I think you can't eliminate that from his game. It's just a matter of whether or not you're able to contain it to a point where it doesn't become a continuous issue.
Let me ask you this, Z-Bop. So that Steelers game, would you say you showed a little concern?
Yes, absolutely. I want to preface a couple of things on this. One, I was honestly more concerned with the way out of everything. And this is a tough thing for me to do because I can't determine how much weight I want to put into something like this, because to me, it could mean absolutely nothing at all.
Good, because I'm going to follow up with that. Go ahead.
Well, like you said earlier, and my man Colin Coward, it's one of my favorite sayings of his. He says, nothing is everything, but everything is something. And I think that you definitely see some shades of stuff.
Perfect segue.
Yeah, you know it, right? I want to say that there's two things that stood out to me that are kind of opposite of where we're at currently in this conversation. One is the offensive line. Did it look like a problem? Yes. But at the same time, I thought Josh Allen looked as sharp as I've ever seen him. He was that ball to Gabe Davis was absolutely ridiculous. His accuracy lately over the couple of times we've seen him in the preseason here looks unbelievable. He looks incredibly fit out there, which we were, looking forward to seeing that on display, because when we saw him in person and we've seen him throughout this offseason, he just looks like he has put on weight in a good way. He just looks like a man on a mission. He looks like that out there on the field. And it keeps being mentioned in the comments here. Kim says it once again. His release time against the Bears was significantly and noticeably better. It was on target, on a dime, out of his hands, on the move. And that's what I want from Josh Allen this year. Is I want quick throws, getting them down the field, because that is how the Chiefs, frankly, that's how they win their games. And that's how the Patriots won their games back in the day. That's the way to do it. He looked incredibly accurate to me. And I thought he looked, honestly, until I saw the numbers, and you're kind of just throwing down the O-line, right? The Steelers, I thought he was the one takeaway I had in that first quarter. I'm like, damn, at least he looks phenomenal, because he did. My biggest concern was the Steelers walking down the field against this defense. That was my concern. I mean, I couldn't believe it. The run that they busted off, I was just kind of like, wow. This is a team last year that was the number 2 overall defense when it came to rushing defense. And we've become accustomed to nobody being able to run on it. And so I sit here and I think that sucked, but does it mean a damn thing? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But I will say my biggest takeaway, as far as everything you could dissect from that game. The worst of it all to me was the way that Kenny Pickett and a Steelers offense that you look at to be one that shouldn't be dicing up the Bills. They kind of walked down the field on them, and it looked really easy.
So let's fast forward this then. Let's fast forward. Okay. So here's the scenario that I want to put you in, because you saw how Bills Mafia was after that Steelers game. They were freaking ripping into the team.
It was something.
And it was something. What is the reaction of Bills Mafia if we go into week 1 and we lose this game? Not only if we lose this game, right? But Stephon Diggs and the connection step up between Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen is not great. It's a little shaky, but it's a good defensive Jets team. But like, we lose this game, but we lose the game in a fashion where you're like, this was nasty. What reaction do you
Bengals
think?
type loss?
Not quite as bad as the Bengals type of loss, but it's significant enough where you're like, one team looked better than the other, right? What kind of reaction will Bills Mafia have? What do you think? What kind of reaction will they have? Is it one of those situations where it's like,
no,
guys, it's only week 1. Don't worry about it. We have 17 weeks to go. Is it going to be one of those situations, or is it all hell breaks loose? It's week 1. We're on 1. We lost to the Jets and we didn't look good. What kind of reaction is Bills Mafia going to have?
Absolute implosion, pandemonium, unlike you've ever seen. That's also why the nerves I have are baked in. That's baked into it, because I foresee, and this is why, once again, to the counterpoint, if I'm a Jets fan, I feel the exact same way. The media, this game, you got to understand, it would already be like this to begin with, but it's primed to be like this because it's on Monday night. Tuesday morning will be nothing but Bills, Jets, dissecting that game down to a T, every single place you could imagine, right? And if that goes the way you're insinuating, not only will us fans, and now when I say us, I'm not saying you or, in the chat, you or whatever, I'm talking collectively, because you know it. You go online, it's doomsday when this team isn't winning by 30. I mean, that's just the reality. It will be that on a disgusting scale, with the addition of a media blitzkrieg that the entirety of the media in which has wanted to see the Bills fail will finally have ammunition, and they will not spare a bullet of it. That to me is the problem. And that's one thing that I get nervous about, because frankly, as a fan and knowing what the Jets fans will do with that, if they're on the winning end of it, the combination of all that, Rico, has me sick to my stomach. It really does. The thought of the Jets getting all of this praise and whatever else off of one game, while the Bills fan base implodes and we get destroyed on the exterior as far as media outlets and stuff is concerned. The thought of that disgusts me. And what also disgusts me too is, if they do go out and lose that way, they haven't lost like that other than the Bengals game in a long time. They don't lose like that. Last year, they only had 3 losses combined by, 8 points. In the year prior to that,
something like that.
They had a couple of blunders, but it wasn't until the middle of the season when that Jacksonville game hit or whatever else. So I will say, they have never, under Josh Allen, at least as of late, they haven't started off like in a way in which it looks like they're I don't know what the right word is here. They haven't started off looking, you know what I mean? I could understand them not looking great, but if they come out looking like that, then yes, I just don't anticipate it. And if we do see it, then what my biggest question will be then, Rico, is what was it that was the cause of it? And is that going to be a continuous problem? Right.
And you know what? And here's the thing, and this is the silver lining in this. And because of the way we ended that Bengals game, and fast forward to that Steelers game, that was pretty awful for the starters. I feel that these Bills, and I saw some people like, this is a doom and gloom show. It's so dark. It's not even about that. It's more so about the reality of things, right?
Well, it's hypothetical. And we should preface that again, because we're just talking hypothetical. That's all it is.
It's all it is. And how offseason went, where there was a little turmoil here and there, and you just know how the media would blow this up. But here's the silver lining in this. We know Josh Allen he ain't no bitch, and he is about to freaking galvanize these guys and get these guys going and say, yo, this is the Jets. This is week 1. We need to show them who the fuck daddy is. And that's what needs to happen. And Ken Dorsey going into second year, I'm excited to see what he's got. And I think that he's going to concoct a plan in order to move Diggs around. And that way you're not going to be able to double team Diggs when and set the game up the way you guys want to. You're going to have to really start play hard. And the biggest X factor here is obviously Kincaid. So if you want to double team Josh Allen, you want to double team Stephon Diggs, Kincaid is going to have a massive game. And this is huge. And we saw some really good things out of Kincaid in that Steelers game when he was available.
See him used, right, Rico? I want to see right off the bat, like they're not messing around. He's part of this offense.
And let's forget about tight ends. Rookie tight ends don't contribute in the NFL, man. Bump all that. Get this guy in the game and get him active early. And as soon as you get this boy active, bro, it's a different ball game.
That's not the case anymore. Rookies now, especially in positions of skill positions, that's not the case anymore. There's no developmental period anymore. They come out and they're either got or they don't, man.
Forget all that. And here's the beautiful thing about this is, and that I'm warming up somewhat to James Cook, and I'm seeing that he can be a 3-down back, and he can. So now you're gonna sometimes where you're like, man, we got to prove ourselves. Well, you're gonna have to prove that you can run the freaking ball in this NFL. So you gotta give him the ball. You got to. Right? So if we can establish some kind of run, some kind of threat, and now you got to bring in that defense, boy. And we haven't even talked about Deontay Hardy. And he's been quiet. Not a whole lot's happened. I would not be surprised if they open up the fucking game. Pardon my damn language. They open up the game and 65-yard bomb to Deontay Hardy to get the freaking crowd shut the hell down. And then, you know what I'm saying, we start the stampede. I don't want to get myself excited because we have a whole 10 days before the whole season starts. Bro, don't get me all pumped up, right? We got to wait till these cuts happen, and then we get this thing cracking. But do I feel good about this game? Never, man. I'm always nervous as shit. You know what I'm saying? Do I want my team to win? Heck yeah. I don't feel good, but I want them to win, man. It's a crazy feeling. Let's just get the win. I just want the win. Let's go start 1-0 and let's start fucking rolling on these guys. I'm sorry. You got me dropping F-bombs on the Z-bot. You know what I mean? The smoke show. I'm sorry, bro.
No, let's go after it, because I think, by the way, once again, it always has to be reiterated. These are just hypotheticals. We're talking about a situation. I mean, there's an infinite amount of possibilities that could happen here. One of them is a loss. That is a possibility. I know it's an insane thing to think about, but it's something that we are discussing because of the weight surrounding this game and the inevitability of what comes with a loss, especially a certain type of loss. It's not, when you talk about these things, it's not speaking it into existence. It's not a loser mentality. What it is just thinking about a possibility and what might come of that. And then what could possibly be put in place to avoid that, or what could come from, if that ends up happening, what was the reason for it? And is there a reason to panic? There's different ways to look at it. I think right now, what we should do is kind of map out because you don't think they're going to win it. I want to hear from you, because here's where I'm at right now. I think you personally put more stake into these preseason games than I do.
Yeah, I do. Yes, I do.
I got to be 100% honest with you. Like, if you hook me up to a lie detector test, I really don't give a shit. I mean, there's some things about it that piss me off. Like not gonna lie, if you're a diehard Bills fan, you watch that Steelers game, you're gonna be pissed off whether it matters or not. They're getting killed. I mean, what does it matter who's in there, whether it matters or not? It still pisses you off and it's still annoying, right? But to me, it doesn't matter. All that's gonna matter is the tone set on week 1. That to me is when it all starts. That everything else last year and this preseason, I don't give a damn. It's week 1 and we move forward. The way I see week 1 is, I personally think that these Buffalo Bills, I am thinking about putting a significant amount of money on these Buffalo Bills to win this game. I think that these stakes that have been stacked up on the shoulders of the New York Jets are overbearing. I think the Jets are a really good team, both on paper and are going to be so on the field. But this is a team, and I was talking about this earlier, that almost feels like an expansion team to some degree. And they are going to have to go out and get their feet wet in their first game together with Aaron Rodgers against the three consecutive time reigning champ, AFC East champ Buffalo Bills, that they're going to have to pass, the team that they are being, stacked up against as far as the competition is concerned in the AFC. The Bills are going to go out there riding in off of a loss that I can't help but think has motivated them. They're coming in with a better roster than they had last year. They're coming in healthy. I think Josh Allen comes in even better this coming season after continuously telling us that he's never been more focused on football than he is currently. I think we see better out of Ken Dorsey in a second year here with additional pieces, both in the running game and then, of course, the addition of Dalton Kincaid. I think the Bills and the Jets both match up very well. They both have terrific defenses. They both have really good defensive fronts. They both have really good quarterbacks. They both have good weapons. And, they both do have good run games. The Bills' run game at times doesn't seem necessarily great, but they can move down the field running the ball. Oftentimes it is just Josh Allen, but I do think that this run game is going to be better this year with more James Cook touches and with Damian Harris in the short yardage situation. Where I think the biggest difference comes into play is that this Bills defensive front and this Bills defense in itself is going to have the advantage because they're going to be going against an offensive line for the New York Jets that might be the worst Aaron Rodgers has played behind in his career. And if not that, one of the worst he has played behind in some time. He's also coming off a year. Everybody wants to refer to the back-to-back MVP years. Aaron Rodgers was not a very good quarterback last year when he gets down to black and white. He was not a very productive quarterback last year. In his own division, both Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins put up better numbers than Aaron Rodgers did last year. I'm not discounting what Aaron Rodgers is at all. This Jets team is infinitely better with him. But in his first game, Rico, in a jersey that is not green and yellow, he is going to be going behind this offensive line who have yet to work out their kinks. They've even said it in Hard Knocks. He basically came out and said that they have not found a cohesive unit yet on the offensive line. And you're going to have to go against a Bills defense that when they're coming, they're coming. The difference here is Aaron Rodgers can no longer move out of the pocket and scramble around and make plays with his feet like Josh Allen can. If you get to Aaron Rodgers, he is the king of throwing that ball away within a millisecond. If that play's dead on a blitz or if the offensive line collapses, Rodgers isn't going to hold on to it. He's not going to try to extend the play. He's just going to get rid of it. I think the biggest difference here is that Josh Allen's capability of extending the play in comparison to Aaron Rodgers' inability to do so against two really good defenses that are facing off against one another, right? The difference here is the offensive line and the inexperience in which Aaron Rodgers has with it is going to play a factor, whereas the offensive side of things for the Bills, despite having to go up against a terrific defense in themselves, of course, in the New York Jets, I think Josh Allen ultimately winds up being the difference maker here. I think Aaron Rodgers looks good, and I think at times he makes his plays. He's always going to. Well, I think what is getting lost in translation here is that Aaron Rodgers isn't walking out there a New York Jet veteran. He's walking out there a veteran quarterback, but not a New York Jet veteran. Do people remember?
Stop.
No. Because hold on. Do people remember how bad the Tampa Bay Buccaneers looked with Tom Brady in the beginning of their season when he first joined the team? I know they went on and won the Super Bowl and they looked terrific in the playoffs, despite almost losing to the Washington Commanders in the wild card. I don't care. They still went on and won the Super Bowl. I get it. That was a team that was a fringe playoff team the majority of the season. It took them a while to get it right, and that was Tom Brady. And that was an offense that I find to be potentially better at that time as far as weapons are concerned. You're looking at this New York Jets team. It is a completely different ball game for Aaron Rodgers, and he has been the riding the throne all the way into this Monday night game. This is going to be a major test for a team that their first opportunity to play together as a cohesive unit is going to be against one of the best teams in the league. I think it's a very tough task for them to face right out of the gate. It doesn't mean they're a bad team. It doesn't mean they won't get significantly better throughout the year, but I think there is something to this being the first task.
Zachary?
Team. I truly do.
Zachary, I'm going to disagree with you, brother. Let me tell you, man. This isn't rookie freaking Aaron Rodgers coming into the league where he's 3 years into the game. This is not rookie Aaron Rodgers. Yes, he's an aged, seasoned vet indeed, right? But hear me out. This is the team that, 7-9 last year, okay? They brought in the offensive coordinator that under Aaron Rodgers was a 2-time MVP. Stop with the BS that people were telling you. He was an old man and it's a new team. And brought in.
You're misinterpreting what I'm saying.
I'm not misinterpreting anything. You're saying that
this is the first crack at it. I'm not saying it can't get there. And I'm not saying it can't get there. This is the Rico. This is the first snap he walks out onto that field and takes is the first snap in over 15 years where he hasn't had the exact same situation around him as far as the franchise is concerned. This is as big of a change that you can make as an athlete anywhere. And it's happening in real time against one of the best teams in the league. Obviously, it's going to get more cohesive. And I'm not saying what you're insinuating here. I'm not saying old man Rodgers is going to go out there and shit himself. I'm saying there's something to be said about a lack of chemistry when it's Aaron Rodgers out there behind a bad O-line and a bunch of young guns out there that he's going to have to rely on. I think they're going to be a great team throughout the year. But right out of the gates, that's the question. Are they going to be able to just player immediately? That's the question.
I would be totally with you if it was Aaron Rodgers with a brand new O-line, with a brand new OC, with brand new bunch of receivers that he doesn't have any chemistry with. But that isn't the case here. He's got an O-line that he's not familiar with, yes, but he's under an offensive coordinator that he knows very well. So can he make checks out of certain things? Does he see things? He's been in the game long enough that negates the young fresh O-line.
It negates that offensive line. The guy who got booed out of Denver last year, potentially the worst coaching job in NFL history. You're telling me, according to Sean Payton at least, you're telling me that he single-handedly is negating the inadequacies of this offensive line?
Listen, Russell, you can't use that because Russell Wilson was onto a new team with a new offensive coordinator. They're still trying to get together. Hackett and Rodgers been together 2 years, and then 2 MVPs under that belt. But that's neither here nor there because that's going to be
it's here or there. I think it's both
because we got to save this. We got to save this conversation for closer to when week starts. Because what I really want to get into, because one of the super chats came in, we're talking about surprise cuts and who's going to be cut, who's going to be on the squad. And I do have a question for you because this is something that I had a conversation with Pierre today about, and it was, there goes, I gotta close out. It was about the backup quarterback position. I want your thoughts on this, right? So we obviously know that if something happens to Josh Allen, God forbid, we don't want it.
Forget it.
Let's knock on wood. We ain't doing nothing, right? How do you feel about Kyle Allen as our backup quarterback? Are we all in on him? And I mean, I know it doesn't matter because any other quarterback that goes in there, it's not adequate. It's not to the level that we need it to be. But Kyle Allen, do we keep him, or you think that we're looking, especially because we went looking at Trey Lance and trying to bring Trey Lance onto the squad? What are your thoughts on that backup quarterback position?
Trey Lance would have been nice because that would have been resemblant of what Mitch Trubisky was, in my opinion. I had never felt more comfortable about Josh Allen and potentially going down than I did when Mitch Trubisky was on this team. And it's not because Mitch Trubisky goes out there and leads the Bills to the Super Bowl. It's because there's very few backup quarterbacks in the league with that similar of a play style to Josh Allen like Mitch Trubisky had. I mean, let's face it, Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't as nimble. You know, guys like that were consistent backups that floated around the league forever and ever, right? They're not growing on trees where you can find guys that are very similar to the style of play in which you play with your starter, and you don't have to completely flip the playbook. Trey Lance would have been that option. You would have been able to get by, I think, with him as the backup, being able to do certain things that Josh Allen does, you know, moving out of the pocket, running the ball. At the same time, this is a guy who the 49ers spent 3 first-round picks on and moved off of without him ever even playing a season. It's one of the most insane things we've ever seen in sports. But the question being, am I all in on Kyle Allen? Well, clearly the Bills aren't, because they went out and tried to get Trey Lance, which was a smart move. And a classic Jerry Jones fashion, I don't know what's going on there. The difference between what Jerry Jones and the Cowboys did and what the Bills did is that if you bring in Trey Lance to Buffalo, if Josh Allen has a bad game, no one's saying, is it Trey Lance time in Buffalo? Coming up next at 7:00 here on Fox Sports Radio. You know what I mean? In Dallas, if Dak Prescott has a 3-interception game, the first story the next morning is it time to give Trey Lance a chance? Next on Fox Sports Radio. That's what happens in Dallas. So that, to me, you know, Jerry taking him away from the Bills, I think that was a bad move by the Dallas Cowboys. I don't see any benefit in doing what they did unless they They have a backup idea that no one else knows in regard to moving off of Dak Prescott. But to answer your question, Rico, and I'm going to put it as bluntly as pretty much you set the question up. I don't care if it's Kyle Allen. I don't care if it's Matt Barkley. I don't care if it's Trey Lance. I don't give a damn if it's me, you, Pierre, Rev. I don't give a shit. Anybody in the chat here. Josh Allen goes down. I don't give a damn who goes in because it is done. It is over. Forget about it. Unless Frank Reich reincarnates himself and comes out and becomes the greatest backup in the history of the playoffs, or Nick Foles, I should say, too. Frank Reich or Nick Foles, pick your poison. Either way, they're both conjoined at the hip together. They won the Super Bowl. But either way, you're looking at a team that is going as far as Josh Allen goes. I look at this in the same – I talked about it earlier. I look at this the same way I look at any team who has a top-tier quarterback. Mahomes goes down, they're not going the distance. If Burrow can't return and he re-aggravates this injury somehow early in the year, he can't return, the Bengals are done. Same with the Jaguars. If Trevor Lawrence goes down, they're done. It goes across the board. But to an even further extent, I believe, with the Buffalo Bills. Because with the Chiefs, for instance, Andy Reid still he was still winning with Alex Smith. You know what I mean? He was still finding a way. And the Bengals were still winning to some degree without Joe Burrow, with Andy Dalton. You know what I mean? They were still winning. The Bills have not won without Josh Allen outside of one season where it felt like we got a gift from God being able to play against Blake Bortles in the wild card with Tyrod Taylor. These Buffalo Bills will only go as far as Josh Allen goes. And if he is not out on that field, nobody, including myself, has any belief in these Buffalo Bills being able to contend in this AFC. It's impossible. It would be the equivalent of looking at the rest of the AFC outside of the teams that have a great quarterback and making the argument that they're going to compete. I mean, you look at the Patriots, for instance, even with a starting quarterback, a national championship winning quarterback and Mac Jones, first-round draft pick, you look at them right now and you don't think they have a chance. Imagine arguing the Bills have a chance without Josh Allen. The only reason you argue that they have a chance is because of him. So to me, talking about the backup quarterback position is irrelevant because the second it becomes relevant is the second this season's over. And I don't know how you feel about it, but that's where I'm.
I see it differently, man. And I feel like I'm
really?
There goes Rico being the contrarian and all that. But it's not about that.
I'd love to hear this. I haven't heard anything other. I'd love to hear what you think.
I hate the notion of hearing that and I mean, obviously there's a lot of truth in it. If Josh Allen goes down, then the season it's not necessarily shot, but it significantly takes a hit, obviously, right? But don't forget, we have a very good defensive head coach. We have got a very good defense, a top 10 defense. Defenses keep things interesting. Don't forget, the last 2 years, we've kept teams to 17 points on the board, right? So really and truly, you mean a couple rushing TDs, a touchdown, and you got a dub. Now, I bring this up for this reason, right? What happened to the notion of when your backup quarterback goes in, you've got to be able to, your backup quarterback's got to keep you at least 500. You know you're going to take some L's, but you gotta get a couple dubs in there as well, right? This is where you're going to have to focus on your run game. This is where you're going to have to focus on your defense. So when I look at Kyle Allen, I hated the addition of Kyle Allen to begin with. The fact of when we brought in Mitch Trubisky, I said that's a perfect signing. Why? Because if Josh Allen were to go down, you have a mobile quarterback that's got experience that can still sling that rock. But the key in that is a mobile quarterback. What mobility does Kyle Allen give you that's even close to Josh Allen? Of course, your season's doomed. So why haven't we looked into someone that if something does go wrong, they can create with their legs? Like, I know people are going to shit on this and poo-poo on this. Why can't you bring Cam Newton as a backup? Why can't you?
I'll tell you.
You mean tell me you can't bring Cam Newton as a backup, right?
No, you can't. You can't.
Why not?
Why
not?
For the same reason that Jerry Jones should not have brought Trey Lance into the locker room, because now
Trey Lance is a developmental QB. He's only got he's got less than 500 attempts of passing, and that's including college. He's a development. So he ain't going to do shit. Believe me.
It's a story. It's a story. It's a camera. It's an additional camera on a guy at all times.
Listen, I bring up Cam Newton.
Hold
on. I bring up Cam Newton as an example. All I'm saying is we could grab someone that's mobile. Marcus Mariota. Why didn't we grab him? Why didn't we grab Marcus Mariota before he got freaking plucked by I think the Eagles or something like that?
Yes.
You sitting here. You got Carson Wentz that's sitting right now on the sideline somewhere. Mobile. Can do all the things that and if something were go down with Josh Allen, Carson Wentz, I'm not saying he's gonna keep us going, but you'd have some hope in that. You don't have any hope in someone like Kyle Allen. That's the point I'm trying to make. So when you bring a backup that kind of similar to your starting quarterback, so the offense doesn't change. You can still do the things you need to do. He's mobile enough that you can still do things. You put in Matt Barkley, the whole offense changes. You can't do certain things that Josh Allen does.
You're going back to 2004 with Matt Barkley in there. That's not what the NFL is.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, if we move on from Kyle Allen, consider Carson Wentz, for crying out loud, right? We still have a really good chance, but I'd like to have some kind of insurance as my quarterback. I know people say, well, once your quarterback goes down, it's over with. No, the fuck, it's not. I mean, you still got a run game. You still got a defense. There's still special teams. Cut it out. You know what I'm saying? This is the NFL. You still got to play ball. You still got to play ball.
This is back to what I was saying earlier, and I would not have said what I said earlier if Mitch Trubisky. That's why I prefaced earlier. I said I had never felt more comfortable about Josh Allen's status game to game than I did when Mitch Trubisky was the backup, because
you had a comfort.
Trubisky went in. That is still a guy who took the Chicago Bears to the playoffs. I mean, I understand his career fizzled out, but he's got a very similar build to Josh Allen, a very similar play style, and it's a guy that has proven that he can win you games. Kyle Allen has not proven that he can win you games. So I do agree with you. If Mitch Trubisky was the backup today, I would tell you, does my confidence get absolutely shattered in the Bills? Absolutely. But do I still think that they can compete? Yes. With Kyle Allen, I don't. Now, to your couple points there, and I think this is the problem with a lot of teams when it comes to finding an adequate backup. Oftentimes, adequate backup means former starter who is going to be a constant story. Now, for the Bills, it might not be so much, but there's two examples that have constantly been out there that are always stories for other teams. It might not be so much for the Bills because we know Josh Allen, he's him. But one is Baker Mayfield. He's a guy you can't sign because he is just going to be a problem. If you're going to have Baker Mayfield on your team, you're going to give everybody a story day in and day out. Now, granted, good for Baker Mayfield. It looks like he's trying to flip things around. He won the starting job. I'm actually kind of rooting for the guy because he's not allowed. Like, he's not the loud guy in Cleveland now who just feels like he walked in and became a top quarterback. It looks like he's finally maturing into a position. I'm rooting for Baker Mayfield in Tampa. But when he was in that position where, he went to the Rams for a game there or whatever, it's tough because you have a guy with such high popularity that your backup quarterback becomes somebody that you're talking about when it's not necessary. And Cam Newton is the absolute pinnacle of that example. Cam Newton is going to be a guy that you are going to continuously hear about and talk about, and he's going to be interviewed, and he's going to be on camera, and he's going to be at the podium and stuff, even if he has not played a single snap for the Bills. It's just the reality of it. It depends on where you stand as far as how you feel about that. I personally am a guy who wants to not even know, frankly, who my backup quarterback is until I have to face it. So if you have a guy like Cam Newton, for instance, that's impossible. It's just because Cam Newton's a former MVP and his personality is larger than life. I actually like Cam Newton a lot. I just don't think that you can have him on your roster, especially at this point in time. It's not even there anymore. I don't think it's there anymore.
Here's why I feel it makes sense. You put a Cam Newton. I mean, I'm using Cam Newton because it's just there. He's got familiarity with Brandon Beane. He's got familiarity with Jimmy McDermott a little bit. I mean, / Ron Rivera, but and there's no threat to him doing anything. He's just going to be a backup quarterback, and that's what it is. And how often did you hear that Josh Allen is like the second coming of Cam Newton? Like, it would be a perfect fit to bring this guy back there.
How about this then? How about
Come on, son. Like, you can't tell me. Like, everybody needs to put the whole bullshit aside of who Cam Newton is and how flashy he is. He's a backup quarterback. I just don't have any confidence whatsoever in Kyle Allen. I don't give a shit about that dude, man.
You and I can put that stuff aside, but the vast majority of people won't, and that's the problem. I understand what you're saying, but I just thought of something that could be a middle ground to this situation. And just on the hypothetical, say this came down to it. They're going to be sitting around the table, right? McDermott, Dorsey, and they're going to be sitting there saying, we cannot start Kyle Allen. Like at any point in this season, if Josh Allen, even for a game, right? A game or two, every stretch throughout this year has at least one game back-to-back where it is an incredibly tough game. This schedule's insane. I got to tell you, Rico, what I would not bat an eye on, and I'd honestly kind of be like, all right, let's go. You sign Cam. If Josh got hurt, you sign Cam that night. You don't have him on the team waiting in the wings. You don't have him taking reps and stuff. No one's signing Cam Newton today. No one's signing him tomorrow. I think if he's out there in the middle of the year and Allen goes down and you need a desperation pull, that to me would make sense if you just call him and bring him on the team out of his house, essentially. Having him on the roster, on the other hand, I think is a really tough proposition because of just knowing that this is a guy who at one point was one of the most popular and talented athletes on the planet. It just doesn't go away and it becomes something. And I just don't think, and with a team with the aspirations the Bills have, I think that a guy like Cam Newton, he belongs in a situation where he's actually competing with a guy and making that guy better, which is exactly what I think he was doing in New England. I think that's why he hasn't found himself anywhere else since. But there's something to be said.
I think we're overblowing this.
I think we are too. I don't even know how we got down on this topic.
No. And I think we're overblowing this. I think we're overblowing it as is like where we're dismissing, not we, but like people just dismiss Cam Newton because of his name, right? All I'm saying is if we're going to have a backup quarterback, give me a backup quarterback that's similar to what traits that Josh Allen has. So if something were to go down with Josh Allen, at least the offense moves on with a similar style. Kyle Allen isn't it. That's why we tried to bring in Trey Lance, which is somewhat of an athletic quarterback. Can have an arm, and you're not really expecting anything from him because he'll be a developmental piece. That's what he tried to do. So if I see that my man Brandon Beane was trying to go after a nice developmental young quarterback in him, that means that backup quarterback is not solidified. He's still looking.
No,
and there's some pieces out there. That's what I'm saying.
I got to tell you, man, I don't know what Marcus Mariota's getting paid, but that would have been, I would have loved that. I would have loved that because he's mobile, and I thought he was really likable on the quarterback series. I would have loved that as a backup. I would have felt okay with Marcus Mariota. You know, if I knew that had to go to that point, I would feel okay about that. But I think that you do have to overpay for a good backup quarterback, and that's what Philly did. And they do understand that Jalen Hurts, similar to Josh Allen, is a guy who we've already seen him get hurt, and we know that is a possibility. So I do get that. It's really tough, though. I mean, what's crazy to me, Rico, is like we're talking about this, and then you look at where Trey Lance came from in himself. And what's nuts to me is it really all comes down to the coaching. Because if you look at like San Francisco, for example, you could argue they have 3 backup quarterbacks on their team. Right. And they're going to go with one of them in Brock Purdy, who is Mr. Irrelevant. And then Sam Darnold, who's now been named the backup. You move on the first round pick, who might go down as the biggest bust in NFL history. And that team is still walking into the 2023 season as potentially the second or first best team in the NFC and a top 5 team overall. So that's the wild aspect of this. I think it all comes down to how you're able to implement them. And I just think with a guy like Josh Allen, you can't implement that. You can't replicate that unless you have a very specific type of person. And even then, you're not going to get to that degree. That's why the 49ers are interesting. It's almost like plug and play. That's why Jimmy G did so well for so long. If you got a guy who can run that offense, you're humming.
They got a good system out there, and you can't even front because they're still always in it. One last point about the quarterback position. Matt Corral is a backup. He's going to be the 3rd quarterback in Carolina right now. So you got a Bryce Young kid, and then you've got Andy Dalton that's going to be backing up, and then you got Matt Corral out of I think he went to North Carolina. Is that where he went to school? I can't remember where he went to school, but he's the 3rd quarterback, man. He's athletic, and he can do big things. I wouldn't be surprised if Bean was like, yo, what are y'all saying about that quarterback over there if he's out there? But anyway, I'm off that quarterback talk. It's on the eve of us finding out who makes the 53. Could this be that it's going to be Kyle Allen and he's going to be the backup? Is he going to get a bad rap from us? Who knows? I'm just not sold on that dude, man.
The best way to put the bow tie on this, Rico, is I hope you and that is the last we utter his name until whenever. Let's transition to 2 spots that actually will be uttered throughout the season by us, and they actually really do matter, and it'll be interesting. Let's talk about
Ole Miss. Thank you about that, country boy.
What we got? Oh, I see. Got it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he came out of Ole Miss. I think I was thinking of the boy out of Sam Howell out of
yeah.
Commanders. Go ahead.
So let's talk about. I feel like you always got some spicy takes when it comes to the cornerbacks position and defense overall. You kind of like to dive into where you think you're going to find guys that either aren't going to be helpful at all, or you think are going to shine, and maybe others don't think so. Where are you currently at right now with the man lining up next to Matt Milano and the man lining up opposite side of Tre'Davious White? Where do you currently stand right now with those two big spots that everybody's kind of waiting to see
Bro,
how that develops?
I was rooting for my man Kyrie Elam to just battle, fight, and it just wasn't happening. So, and right now, I'm telling you right now, it's freaking. It's got to be Benford, man. I like what Benford's been doing. If not for Benford getting hurt and breaking his arm last year, he probably starts. But he broke his arm and he was out. So Dane Jackson, by default, jumped in, and Kyrie as the rookie, we know that he was just going to get sprinkled in. Year 2 was supposed to be a big year for Kyrie Elam, but he just isn't putting it together. He's not putting it together. He's just not. And it's evident because Dane Jackson was getting the reps, and now Benford has leaped him clearly. So now you're looking at Kyrie Elam as the cornerback 4. He's cornerback number 4 that got drafted in the first round. Ugh. It's the word. It's disheartening to even think about it because we traded up for the guy. So to me, it's Benford, it's Trey White, and let's get this thing popping. Let's roll, right? And we'll see how that goes. I
agree. I think it's more straightforward than it's being let on to be. I mean, we do know McDermott. He'll shuffle through corners like crazy. I mean, we do know that, but let's face it. Kyrie Elam, as of right now, he's not what they drafted him to be. You would know if he was, because you can tell the confidence level a staff has in a player when you're hearing about him constantly. That's why, like, all you hear about Dalton Kincaid, even though you haven't seen it personally, all you hear is great stuff. And that was right out of the gate, Rico, right? Automatically. With Kyrie Elam, you never heard that once, and you still don't hear any of it at all. And that's kind of when you know it's not going to probably be first round type material like you thought it'd be, because usually by this time you're at least getting flashes of what you think looks exactly like what you drafted the guy to be. I don't think we're getting that currently, and I think we know that because it's still a rolling deck at the cornerback position, and it's probably going to be Dane Jackson and not Kyrie Elam, who, like you said, was traded up to be drafted. Now, the different situation overall at linebacker, just because that it's a situation where their hands were tied. They were forced into having to put in a first-year starter because of the loss of Tremaine Edmonds. I just think that with the addition of the not the addition, I think with the healthy defensive roster coming in, I think that helps overshadow a bit the loss of Edmonds and potentially the uncertainty at cornerback too, just because when you do have a healthy Hyde Poyer tandem, and when we do get Von Miller back and we do have a fully healthy Tre'Davious White, this defense was still top 10 in almost every category last year, top 5 in a majority of them without those guys out on the field at the same time. You're going to have that this year. So do you personally think that it's going to be something where, do you see it right now? Because I got to tell you, I've been seeing a little bit of it already. Or do you see it right now come week 2, 3, where you're seeing, man, we never should have got rid of Tremaine Edmonds. Oh, we never should have done. We should have done it. Do you foresee that, or do you think it's going to be?
Bro, if that conversation is going to happen for the first 5 weeks, it's going to happen, especially with the first 3 weeks, right? Because the first team we play is Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall, and if they go wild on us, then it's going to be a lot chatter. But hear me out here. When Edmonds was in on our team too, we still got gashed. So it really is not going to make a damn difference. Really, at the end of the day, it's about the freaking defensive front. Can our defensive front tighten up, get into your gaps, and make sure that you're disciplined enough and not give away, massive holes, right? And our defensive front is way stronger than our linebacker core. But the first couple of weeks, maybe you'll hear about it, but then it's over with. It's done. Now, in the passing game, this is where Tremaine Edmonds made a difference because he had length, he had size, right? When you're a quarterback trying to hit something in the middle, you got a 6'5" with his hands up, he's freaking 7 feet. Now you got to throw over that thing. So that makes all the difference. But I mean, at the end of the day, man, we ain't gonna miss a damn beat with with Tremaine Edmonds gone. I mean, he's cool and all, but it is what it is. Now, Dotson ain't on Tremane's level, but this defense overall is good enough to mask that, and I think we'll be just fine. And we're not going to be really uttering Tremaine Edmonds' name. And let me tell you something: if you go back and watch that Bears game, this solidified me allowing Edmonds to go to the Bears. Check this out: if you guys go back and watch the highlights of the Bills game, there was a crossing route on that Stephon Diggs caught. All right, and if you go back and watch the crossing route and you slow it down, Edmonds sees Diggs coming across. So he knows, okay, I got to pick him up or I'm switching with my linebacker. So there's got to be some communication there. What is this? So jams up the receiver that's jamming him, which jams him and the linebacker, his teammate, and allows Diggs to go over. So he doesn't even make the right decision. So you know what? Good riddance, Mr. Tremaine Edmonds. I'm good. I'm very good. Now go watch that highlight and come back to me and tell me, yeah, Rico, I know what you're talking about.
I just think they have so many other great pieces that I don't think it's going to be something. I mean, there's going to be a time where a running back, like you just said,
they can have that $18 million, boy. They can have that shit.
That's the thing. It's like you can't be mad about losing him when you saw what he commanded. You can't. That to me is what I don't get upset about. I see what he got from the Bears, and I'm like, I can't be mad at losing him. The Bills were never going to be in that ballpark. Never. So how can I possibly even wait? How can I waste a minute of my time being upset about it? It was never going to happen. And if it did, I talked about this earlier. If it did, Rico, what other part of the roster gets destroyed? Because something would have had to have you got to give up something somewhere in order to have made that happen.
The Bills made their decision. It was either Matt Milano or Tremaine Edmonds. And they picked Matt Milano, knowing that we're just going to fill the spot with whoever. So right now, Dotson had a shaky Steelers game. It wasn't very good for him. So who knows what's going to happen with him. And then obviously we had it would have been great to see Terrell Bernard show us what he's got. His strengths are his instincts, being in the right place, the right time, his willingness to get in there and tackle. I know he's a little undersized, but we're about to find out. Week 1, you might just see Matt Milano and who knows, AJ Klein, for crying aloud, being the starter. Right now, the linebacker position is in flux right now. These cuts, these cap casualties that's going to be happening, look for the Bills to add potentially a linebacker, and then somebody's got to go. Now, is it going to be Dotson? Is it going to be AJ Klein cut? Terrell Bernard's making this team, but fam, listen, we're waiting on these cuts. Tomorrow is a big day. Cuts are going to be made. Look at Kirksey is already available right now. Kirksey is a linebacker that we were looking at last year or the year before, and Kirksey is available now. So it would not surprise me if the Bills said, "Come on down," right? So don't settle on what you see at linebacker right now. We're going to change things up. We'll be just fine.
Big day tomorrow, of course, for that. It'll be interesting to see how they shuffle around the guys that they aren't necessarily completely moving off of. How they shuffle around, bring a guy in, bring a guy out type of deal. You know how it all goes. The whole thing to me, it's like this part right here is where you lose me sometimes. It's like a gigantic game of chess where you can't even keep up with all the different things you have to do just to keep a guy. And you get rid of him, you bring him back in. I just think that right now, given where the Bills currently are, it's nice to know that almost every spot of major prominence outside of a couple areas, which every team has, I would argue that the situation the Bills are currently in, I would take over the majority of anybody else when you're talking about positions in which you're trying to find a solidified guy, right? Because there's so many areas that teams are currently looking at where they just have no answer. And the Bills right now, I think in the biggest areas of need for a successful team, have the majority of the answers.
Listen, no doubt about it. That's why tomorrow's gonna be a big game, man. I'm looking forward to it. So quarterback position, we'll see what they do with that. Linebacker position, we'll see who they add, because I have a feeling they're gonna add someone. The cornerback spot. Listen, if you want to look at the bright side of it, we've got some depth. We definitely got some depth at the cornerback spot. So if things aren't working out with a certain player, man, on to the next one, right? And just remember, I mean, injuries happen. Things happen, so we got to make sure that we're on top of things, man. But I gotta give a shout out to my man Sam. He put a comment that's freaking hilarious. I'm not even gonna front. Sam H.
That sounds great. I kind of want one of those myself.
Oh, that's funny.
He was up shopping, and he leaves, comes back. Show's still going. We're about to wrap it up soon. I wanted to wrap it up with one last thing because earlier we were ranting about this. I forgot. I kind of gave you my reasoning and what I thought I was going to see in regard to why the Bills win the Monday Nighter against the Jets. You have already stated that you think they don't win, but we didn't really dissect. I would love to know what you think in your mind is the reasoning they don't and what unfolds out on the field that winds up leading to the Bills' loss. What is it that you see currently that you just think that's going to be the reason I don't see the Bills coming out on top in week 1?
You know what? Honestly, it's a fair question. It's tough to answer that one, but I think it's just the hype of the game.
You just got a vibe. You just got a vibe.
It's the hype of the game, and I think that it's not, like I said, it's not going to be like, I don't think it's going to be like a blowout. I think it's just going to be like a significant, like, the Jets won this game, and I feel like we're going to split this series. I think they're just going to grab the first one. That's just the way I feel about it. But are we going to sweep the division? No. But if we do end up not taking this game, or what affects this game, decision making, and that's not just coming from the coaches. That's coming from number 17. You got to make decisions. You can't turn the ball over. You had 15 turnovers last year. 15 or 17. 15 turnovers last year. You can't. You got to hold on to the ball. You can't. You got to make right decisions. And the other decision maker has come down to Coach McDermott. You got to make the right decisions because now you're calling the plays, big fella. So you got to make the right calls. You got to put your defense in the right position. And let's get this dub. And I really want this dub. And if we don't, it's okay because we'll get the second one.
To that point, though, real quick, which side of the ball concerns you the most in this matchup?
Well, that's a great question. Which side of the ball concerns me the most? The offensive side of the ball.
Like, for instance, you talk about Josh Allen, right? And then you got Dorsey. You also have McDermott in his first game as the defensive play caller.
Offensive side of the ball concerns me the most because I remember what they were able to do to us last time, and I'm not for it. So I need the offense to show me that they can go up against a top tier corner, a top tier pass rush. You know what I'm saying? A very good coach defense. I need and plus we got Kincaid, we got James Cook, we got some new pieces that we want to show off. I need this offense to show me what they got. Let's go.
We're 2 weeks away, Rico. I can't believe it. You live tomorrow night? What's the story?
I'm live tomorrow night. So I get off my flight. Luckily, it's early enough that I get back. I got to go watch the game, watch my daughters play soccer. They're both on the same team. One's a goalie, one's a defender. We got to get that dub. And then I come back and we will talk about all the cuts that were made and the team that we have. It's not going to be a long 3-hour show like my man Ziba, but I got to give credit to my man Ziba. Ziba is the king of pods, man. That boy can go 3 hours and say, what? 3 hours already? I love it.
I don't even pay. I can't even tell. Well, I spent a half hour bitching about Royal Caribbean Cruise Line earlier, so that's probably why we haven't had enough.
Yeah, but it's gonna be tomorrow's show. So join us. We're gonna be talking about the cuts. We're gonna talk about the surprise cuts because there's gonna be 1 or 2 cuts that are gonna be on that squad. Jordan Phillips may not make the team. I don't know, man. Something tells me he might not make the team, and it might be Kingsley Jonathan. I don't know. We'll see, baby. We'll see.
Find out tomorrow on the Rico Report. He'll have it all for you. It's going to be a good one. You're going to have a ton of stuff to talk about tomorrow. As for tonight, thanks so much for tuning in. Almost 3 hours in the books. Steady audience the whole way. You guys were great. We're 2 weeks away, baby. I can't wait. I simply cannot wait, Rico. It's here. It's here. College football this weekend. Labor Day. Boom. Bills football is here. Make sure to tune into Rico tomorrow for all the latest on the roster. And once that's set in stone, it's time for some Bills football.
Feel free to join me tomorrow, buddy. Feel free to join me.
Listen, if I'm around, which I think I'm going to be, and maybe you'll see me tomorrow night. Who knows?
Yes, sir.
We'll see that one up. Maybe you'll see me tomorrow night. Until then, have a great night, folks. Thanks again for tuning in. And as always, go Bills.
It's good for you. Come on.
Go Bills, baby.